He returned from school, another day of quiet suffering endured, but this day was different. A letter waited, and the moment his fingers broke the seal, Kuyu Haruto was ripped from his world, plunged into an unknown dimension. Clueless and terrified, a voice began to echo inside his mind. It was him, a version from 10 years in the future, bearing a dire warning. Haruto was destined to become the greatest space-time mage, but his power would bloom too late to prevent catastrophe. This was a desperate gambit to accelerate his growth. His first trial, the F-rank dungeon in Shinjuku, alone. A rendezvous with his own ghost. Back in his room, the protagonist reeled. It was like a plot from a level up manhwa but the pain of his day was all too real. His horrible day at Herudo's school. They had slammed him around, his face grinding against the filthy floor, all for the amusement of his classmates. They jeered, mocking his inability to dodge a simple spell. Rage burned in his chest, but his battered body refused to rise. Haruto just lay there. He finally stood, asking if they were finished. He demanded they return what they stole. Instead, they ordered him to go buy them all snacks. He complied, but he forgot the soda, a fatal error. His punishment was a barrage of fire spells. The lead tormentor launched another searing attack that nearly incinerated Haruto. This time, at least, his face was spared the floor. Their sadistic game was interrupted by an approaching figure. A girl appeared, her expression furious. This was Shinonome, of the disciplinary committee. They tossed back Haruto's property, but he fumbled the catch. It hit the ground, the screen cracking, a perfect mirror of his shattered dignity. She rushed to his side, asking if he was all right. He warned her to back off. Association with him was social poison. They would target her next. She didn't argue, but her eyes were filled with worry, for him. Crushed by his own weakness, Herudo told his only friend they couldn't be children anymore. At school, the whispers followed him everywhere. They snickered behind his back, calling him the weakest student, questioning how he even got in. The truth was his parents' influence. But they were gone now, victims of a tragic plane malfunction. After the day's fresh hell, Haruto's resolve hardened. He would go to the dungeon. Clutching the letter, the voice returned, guiding him toward a featureless wall. He pressed the parchment to the stone, and like magic, a secret passage ground open. Inside, a blue stone floated, bound by chains. It was a skill cube, a source of immense power. As Heruto approached, he saw his own pathetic reflection in its crystalline surface, right before he touched it. The stone flared crimson, searing his hand. Lines of energy erupted across the walls, and the ceiling above shattered. Debris was ripped upwards, coalescing into a colossal stone golem that loomed through the dust. Haruto was paralyzed by sheer terror. He stood no chance against such a monster. The creature moved with impossible speed, striking him with a blow so fast he couldn't even register it. He was slammed into a wall, the future's letter and his broken phone flanking him. The fractured screen flickered, showing a photo that caught his eye. It was his family, the only ones who ever truly loved him. Then, the voice from the letter spoke again, a whisper of encouragement in the darkness. This voice cared for him. And perhaps it cared the most, for it was his own future self. Was this how it ended? Would he just accept this fate? To lose everything again, in this forgotten place? The humiliation from school burned fresh in his mind. He couldn't let it go. He had to get his revenge. The golem struck again. Haruto reached for his blade but was too slow. A system message flashed. Hidden mission requirements met. Adventurer's death, cancelled. Suddenly, raw power erupted from his body. A massive aura flared as his wounds began to seal themselves. Concept of Spacetime, acquired. Haruto was reborn, no longer the loser, but a figure wreathed in crackling blue lightning. His very appearance altered. A new system window confirmed it. He had acquired spacetime magic. The future voice then apologized, revealing the trap was a necessary evil. Spacetime magic won't be known for another 10 years. A truly exclusive power. The boy asks if he is truly from the future, and his older self confirms the tutorial is underway. Wasting no time, the golem strikes again, but now the boy is prepared to retaliate. With that, he evades the monster's blow with an incredible speed he never possessed. The protagonist feels his body is far lighter, wondering if this is the skill's effect. Then, the letter states it will teach him to fight, urging him not to see with his eyes, but to feel. The future voice explains, he must sense the flow of time that governs this world. Concentrating, the boy echoes his older self's words, seeking to grasp the power. The entity claims it knows he can do it because, ultimately, they are one and the same. Witnessing this, the stone monster readies an even greater attack to crush him. Yet, the protagonist closes his eyes and focuses, trying to sense the current around him. The boy stands motionless as the creature's massive fist descends. He attempts to feel time's flow in this world, just as his future self instructed. With his eyes glowing intensely, the boy snaps his fingers, appearing far more confident. The creature strikes again, but the young man vaults back, dodging the blow by a mere hair's breadth. He then smirks and declares that he is about to use spacetime magic. With his new speed, he sprints up the golem's arm, leaving it no time to react. At that moment, a system window appears, and he activates the physical acceleration skill. The boy launches forward like a spring, instantly gaining incredible speed. He scales the monster at high velocity, a bolt of blue light against the darkness. Reaching the summit, he leaps, realizing the true scope of his new power. Then, he plunges his energized blade straight into the golem's weak spot. The boy lands on the enemy's head, his sword buried to the hilt within its core. From deep within, the stone creature's core slowly begins to shatter. A flash of violet light engulfs everything, signaling the monster's demise. The creature shatters into countless fragments that scatter across the room. After felling the enemy, the young man lands securely on the floor of the secret chamber. Glancing back, he sees the golem's remains turn to dust. A system window appears. This isn't just some level-up manhwa. He gained 4 levels, and earned a large sum of credits. Seeing the rewards, the entity asks if he finally believes him now. Then the letter calls him a little germ, his demeaning school nickname. The boy clutches the envelope, admitting a little trust, and the voice declares it is time for the next phase. As he exits the room, the young man asks if there is more to do, and the letter confirms it. His future self says they must go to Rina Shinon, because she will die today. The protagonist freezes, shocked by the revelation, wondering what it means. Utterly confused, he demands an explanation for what he just heard. The voice confirms his childhood friend, Renee, is truly in danger. She will enter a dungeon with friends and fall to an unlisted boss, stopping dead. His older self's voice commands him to save that girl. The being then urges him to use his power to alter her destiny. With resolve in his eyes, the voice names him the Mage of Spacetime and tells him to move. The future voice details that the girl dies today, inside the ranked dungeon of Ebukuro. The entity explains the cause is a surprise C-rank unlisted boss that will appear. His future self continues, saying her party will call for aid, but no one will arrive in time. Enraged, the young man screams at the voice to shut up and sprints toward the dungeon. He angrily demands why his older self failed to warn him sooner. The letter reminds him that he despises getting involved with others, and thus, he feigns indifference. Reaching the dungeon, the boy faces a monster but ignores it. Pressing onward, the voice taunts him, using his nickname, Germ, to test his resolve. With that, the being tells him to stop pretending that he cares for nothing, and to accept his true feelings. The entity insists he can change the world, with the power now in his hands. The boy surges forward, cutting down all the goblins in his path in a single motion. The voice concludes that the future depends entirely on the actions he takes now. The protagonist tells his future himself to be quiet, sliding across the floor with his aura ignited. He then declares his resolve to follow his heart, whatever the outcome. Pleased, the entity affirms that was the answer it sought, and promises a reward. Meanwhile, in the dungeon's central chamber, a massive blast of energy erupts. The violent impact hurls Ree backward, helpless to react. She slams into the ground as her teammates watch in horror at the sight. From afar, the girl is on the ground, as a friend cries her name in despair. The young woman lies unconscious, fallen and wounded on the floor. With effort, she opens one eye, staring at the being that attacked her. Before them, a knight in black armor materializes, wielding a colossal sword. A system window then reveals the rank C extra boss, the terrifying Dark Sentinel. Terrified, her companions panic as one girl desperately tries to call for help. Another, armed with a staff, attempts to rally them to fight. Yet, one of the boys recoils in terror, refusing to fight and die, but the monster allows no debate and strikes again. Its immense blade descends with crushing force upon the students. The blow shatters the ground, unleashing a massive explosion of violet energy. After the dust clears, revealing Rina, breathless and spent, her eyes reflect the sight of her defeated friends on the dungeon floor. Gazing forward, the girl realizes she is the only one left standing. Her comrades are all critically injured, unable to continue the battle. With his final ounce of will, one of them pleads for her to save him from this nightmare. Without hesitation, she turns to face the Dark Sentinel for one final stand. With a war cry, she charges, her flaming spear aimed at the monster. The strike lands squarely on its armor, but appears to have no impact. In response, the boss emits a wave of blue energy, effortlessly repelling her. Utterly shocked, the young woman sees her strongest attack was futile. Seizing its chance, the Dark Knight raises its sword for the finishing blow. The colossal blade descends swiftly upon the defenseless girl on the ground. Desperate, she screams for help, as a skill window abruptly materializes. In that same instant, the protagonist arrives, stopping the blow with chains of pure energy. He asks his friend if she is all right. Stunned, the girl recognizes him, disbelieving her own eyes. With tears welling, she still cannot process that he is really there. The boy shields her, telling her to get back as he maintains the chains. He then turns toward the Dark Sentinel, knowing his chains won't hold much longer. With a mighty blow, the monster shatters them, and the young man leaps back to evade the strike. He lands safely, distant from the foe, readying for battle. The creature lunges again, but the boy's speed lets him duck beneath the blow. Closing the distance, he manages to parry the giant sword with his own. He identifies a weak point in the monster's armor and directs his attack at that spot. However, upon impact, he finds the armor is far tougher than it seemed. The force shoves him backward, and he fights not to be sent flying. The enemy's blade grinds against his, showering sparks. Finally thrown back, the monster chips a piece from our hero's sword. Seeing this, he realizes the boss is preparing a ranged attack using the gem. The gem pulses with a dark energy and starts to fracture, unleashing immense power. The monster then fires a massive violet energy beam at him. The creature's attack causes a gigantic blast of violet energy, but he uses physical acceleration to evade the lethal beam by a hair's breadth. With his eyes now glowing, he knows his sword alone is insufficient. He recalls how his blade failed to even scratch the monster's armor. From this, he deduces there must be a vulnerability somewhere in the enemy's defenses. He then realizes the weak point is its head, and that he must aim his next attack there. The voice warns him the sword is useless, but he charges forward to attack regardless. He smirks, saying he already knows, as he activates material restoration magic. With that, the shattered sword begins to reform before his eyes, as the monster readies a dark energy attack. Yet, in that split second, the blade smashes into the boss's skull, momentarily stunning it. He seizes this opening, attacking with all his might, unleashing a blue energy explosion. The strike connects perfectly, its head cracking from the force. He lands safely, as the voice announces he successfully altered fate. Before his friend, the hero eyes the fallen foe on the dungeon floor. From the ground, the girl stares up, stunned by the protagonist's power. With determined steps, she rises and strides toward him, demanding answers. She continues her approach and furiously questions how he pulled that off. Utterly bewildered, his friend yells again, desperate to know what just happened. Pointing at her savior, she demands he explain himself at once. But first, she says she must thank him for saving the group. With a slightly flushed face, she yells her gratitude for saving her and their companions. The boy grows a bit flustered by the thanks, saying it was nothing. Then she moves in close, asking what kind of magic he used. At this, the voice from the future warns him not to mention space-time magic. She eyes him with suspicion, and he's at a total loss for words. Changing the subject, he asks her to keep it a secret, that he was the one who saved her. The girl is shocked by his request, and he explains he doesn't want to draw any attention. The voice tells him to just keep stalling, and his friend is startled by the sound. She asks if that voice was his, but he immediately denies it. The entity apologizes, but the boy vows to get revenge on it later for this slip-up. Flustered, he doesn't know what to say to his friend after the chaos. He then concocts a story about testing an incomplete sword skill. Because of this, he desperately pleads with her to keep it a secret for now. With a blushing face, the girl seems to consider his proposal. Then, with a suggestive look, she asks if this is a secret just between them. The protagonist confirms, a bit confused by her unexpected reaction. With a smile, she finally agrees, and he sighs in relief for having dodged that bullet. Back at school, the protagonist narrates that he prevented Rini's foretold death. He also reflects that in doing so, he gained overwhelming power and magic. He recalls that the past cannot be changed as the class bell rings. But now, he concludes that with his new powers, he can finally alter the future. Just then, a classmate taunts him with the nickname, Germ. We see a trio of bullies laughing and mocking our hero for no reason. Their leader says he heard the boy went to the dungeon and saw him fleeing from it. They continue to taunt him, saying he lived up to his name by attracting an extra boss. The bully claims a friend got hurt, and is now in a hospital with a hefty bill. With a smirk, he demands money for his silence about seeing the boy there. Surrounded, our hero remains silent, unresponsive. Annoyed, one of them conjures a fireball, threatening him with offensive magic. Calmly, the protagonist firmly states that he doesn't want to be bothered by them. The bully is stunned by this response, seemingly disbelieving what he just heard. With a dark look, the boy repeats that he doesn't want to, calling them pathetic trash. Enraged, the leader lunges at him with a clenched fist, ready to strike. But the protagonist narrates that thanks to his increased abilities, everything has changed. He can now track his enemy's every move with perfect precision. With that, the boy dodges and counters their blows with incredible speed. In an instant, all three bullies are on the ground, utterly defeated. Shocked, they stare at the boy, wondering what the hell just happened to him. He glares at them coldly, warning them to never show their faces to him again. He then pulls out a lighter while holding their items, asking if they know what happens if they disobey. Terrified, the bullies point at him, speechless at the threat. With the lighter lit, he seals their new promise in a deeply intimidating way. He then repeats his gentle request with a look that makes the consequences of failure crystal clear. Terrified, the three of them nod, not daring to utter another word. Relieved, the young man sighs, deciding it's best to return to class. Inside, he wonders if the next lesson will be the magical element measurement. The teacher announces the semester's measurement will begin and calls his name. Our hero stands politely, answering the master's call for the test. He recalls his last test, magical power near zero in everything. But now, as a space-time mage, he wonders what the new result will be. Approaching the front, he considers using his new magic, just to test it. He then touches the magic mirror under the teacher's watchful gaze. Closing his eyes, he concentrates, releasing his bluish energy. His eyes flare with an intense light as he activates his secret ability. A blinding light erupts from the mirror, leaving the teacher utterly shocked by the scene. He's completely paralyzed, unable to comprehend what's happening. A massive explosion of blue energy then engulfs the room, blinding everyone. The force is so immense that the magic mirror cracks, shattering into fragments. In total shock, the master screams that this is impossible. Scratching his head, the boy bitterly regrets unleashing so much power at once. Our hero realizes that instead of being discreet, he's drawn massive attention. Meanwhile, his friend Renee struggles to stifle her laughter at his predicament. After class, he begins hearing various whispers wherever he goes in the hallways. Students murmur that he shattered the device and holds power above rank A. The protagonist notices the talk about him has completely changed overnight. He walks home, drained by all the unwanted attention. But suddenly, a familiar voice calls his name, and the boy turns. Confused, he scans the area, trying to locate the source of the call. The mysterious voice insists it's right there, yet he still doesn't understand what's happening. Then, something materializes out of nowhere, directly before him. Utterly terrified, the boy screams, not understanding what in the hell is going on. Suddenly, a small pink creature appears, revealing itself as the mysterious voice. With a look of astonishment, he finally recognizes the voice that was calling him. The young man asks if that is his future self, and why it has such a bizarre appearance. The doll explains it used space-time magic to possess a stuffed animal, but at that moment, the entity declares an emergency, and they must act very quickly. The plushie insists there's no time for small talk now. His future self reveals the Chaos Dragon has appeared far earlier than expected. Our hero tenses, asking about this dragon, his teeth gritted in fear. He learns it's an extremely dangerous creature, an alpha-level monster marked for extermination that has already attacked several people. The small creature explains that the beast destroyed the Regional Adventurers Guild. In doing so, the beast caused an unprecedented catastrophe, leaving many wounded. The entity confirms this is exactly what happened in its original timeline. Now, they must defeat it, or tragedy will repeat as history foretold. The boy is stunned by the revelation of the impending catastrophe. He suggests calling the Adventurers Guild for a hunting party, but the doll cuts him off, stating there is no more time. It is already too late. Confused, his future version reveals that the dragon is already right here. At that moment, the gigantic Chaos Dragon appears, roaring before them. The protagonist panics, asking why the creature isn't in a dungeon. His future self explains, this is a species that roams in the open. At this rate, he realizes the school will be utterly destroyed by the monster. Outside, other students walk calmly, oblivious to the threat. A group of students chats casually until the sky abruptly darkens. Looking up, they see the beast, wondering why it's there. The monster's glowing red eye glares down at the students with pure malice. Terrified, they scramble desperately for their lives. A blonde girl screams for the non-combat students to evacuate the area immediately. Soon after, she and her squad of mages prepare for the impending battle. He recognizes the group, murmuring, "That's the Student Mage Council." A vast, pink magic circle then forms on the ground, preparing a powerful attack. Smaller sigils materialize around the beast, setting the stage for the strike. With that, the students unleash a combined magical assault directly at the monster. The group's leader roars that the beast will not set foot in their school. Then, her potent pink magic strikes the dragon head-on, causing a very blinding light. But despite the direct hit, the colossal monster seems to have felt nothing. A massive explosion illuminates the entire sky, and it appears the threat has at last been contained. The team members then celebrate, certain they have managed to vanquish the beast. With a confident smirk, the blonde girl believes her team has handled the job. But to everyone's horror, the attack failed, and they cannot believe what they are seeing. The malevolent creature seems to absorb the attack, preparing a devastating counter. Next, the dragon unleashes a violet energy beam toward the young mages. In the blink of an eye, the entire student council is utterly crushed by the monster. His future self remarks, this is no surprise, as they are just students. The strange creature calls the boy's name in a grave tone. Then the doll spits a pink goo directly into our protagonist's face. The young man yells, asking what the hell it is doing with that stunt. His future self explains that it is a dragon scent to lure the beast. The scent will force the monster to chase him and ignore all others around him. With that, the entity declares it is now his turn to finally slay the dragon. The monster's crimson eye focuses on him, and the gigantic creature charges in his direction. At this, the doll desperately screams for the boy to run as fast as he possibly can. The boy then flees for his life while the beast attempts to crush him from behind. He then glances back, worried, hearing his friend ask the other girl if she is all right. Looking back, the young man sees Rena and the other council members broken on the ground. His future self asks if he wants to keep the girl out of this battle for good. The boy confirms, and the entity tells him to go, as this will reduce the chances of being noticed. With that, the hero activates physical acceleration and begins to flee at high speed. The giant monster then roars and viciously pursues him through the city streets. At that moment, the young man lures the beast to the Nano train station in Tokyo for their confrontation. The protagonist confirms the location is deserted, and the entity instructs him to vault the fence. After leaping the fence, he turns and demands to know the creature's characteristics. The small creature says, its element is darkness, and its breath can obliterate enemies. It then explains that it is resistant to physical attacks, and the young man understands why. The entity confirms, explaining that because it is not intelligent, the scent worked perfectly to attract it. The boy agrees, and the entity says that 500,000 credits were a sound investment. Shocked, the boy asks if he heard the absurd sum of money spent correctly. Enraged, he grabs the doll upon learning the funds came from his account without consent, and he demands how his future self managed to discover his bank password. Though the reason is quite obvious, completely dismayed by the situation, the young man thinks this entire ordeal is insane. His partner tells him not to worry, as he will recover the money quickly. He clarifies that the money is just a bonus, and the true prize is a skill stone. With this stone, he will gain a new and powerful time-space magic, a critical part of any *** level up, Manhwa, English *** progression. The protagonist swallows hard and tells them to continue the plan from where they stopped. The doll reveals that because it is young, the monster's weakness, its core, will be exposed. But before it could say the location, the beast roars and attacks them with its full might. The force of the impact is so immense that our hero is thrown a great distance. Then the small creature yells for him to be careful, and the boy thanks him for the useless warning. At that moment, the dragon fires a massive purple energy beam in his direction. A huge explosion erupts, and the young man tries to defend himself as best he can with his sword. The boy manages to evade, and notes he narrowly avoided the creature's devastating strike. But suddenly, he notices something is wrong, and gets a look of pure shock. The pink explosion detonates exactly where he was standing just moments before. The shockwave is so powerful it annihilates everything around with incredible force. Amidst all the smoke, the giant monster lands on the ground and surveys the damage it has caused. With a malicious grin, the beast believes it has won, and its chest begins to glow. Out of nowhere, a flash of light, and a sword bites deep into the dragon's chest. The beast recoils, confused, as the young man begins his explanation. He reveals it struck an afterimage, a phantom from half a second past. His partner boasts he used space-time magic to evade. Wasting no time, he lunges toward the monster, hunting its weak point. He finally spots the core, glowing ominously in the chest of the enormous creature. With a grim look, our hero shouts that he has finally found it. Then, with all his might, he prepares a devastating blow aimed at the core. The sword strikes the weak spot head-on, causing an intense glow. The young man mutters, something feels wrong, and despite the hit, a bad feeling persists. Suddenly, the body dissolves into purple energy, sucking our hero inside. Utterly confused, the boy wonders what the hell is happening. Next, the monster materializes again from that strange mist. Annoyed, he complains that his future self never mentioned this bizarre ability. The entity explains its body can become poison and that he needs to be wary. The boy demands to be informed of these things beforehand. The doll then explains that the dragon uses its energy to manifest a body. With that, the creature finishes regenerating, roaring with evil might. The purple smoke then morphs into several bats that fly toward him. Horrified, the protagonist says it's impossible for that monster to be a hatchling. His partner confirms a strong foe, that was meant to appear in 5 years has manifested now. The young man demands why this great threat emerged so early. The entity replies that perhaps it's because he altered the future, and now must defeat it. Sighing, our hero complains his future self is dumping all responsibility on him. Just then, the swarm of bats descends upon him, leaving him stunned. With no time to lose, he activates his physical acceleration to escape the airborne swarm of creatures. He quickly manages to slice one of the dark bats pursuing him. The doll then notices that the small dragons don't dissolve into poison when defeated. The entity advises him to defeat the minions first, then wait for the right moment to strike. The young man lands on the tracks and agrees, saying that's exactly the plan. He then starts charging energy in his feet, preparing for his next move. With a determined glare, he prepares to execute the plan and end this fight. He then charges forward at an incredible speed, leaving a trail of light in his wake. Sword in hand, he cuts down every dark creature that appears in his path. The hero continues his relentless assault, annihilating several monsters with each blow. His partner observes, calculating he should level up roughly 3 times from this battle. Panting, the boy pauses to breathe, believing he's defeated all the lesser foes. But suddenly, the main creature reappears at the end of the tracks, its core glowing brightly. Our hero is shocked by the sight before him. Seizing the distraction, the dragon fires a devastating energy beam in their direction. A gigantic explosion erupts, engulfing everything nearby in flames. Hit squarely by the blast, our hero is thrown far back by the impact. The creature doesn't stop, already charging another shot of dark energy. With wide eyes, the young man realizes he won't have time to dodge this blow. Annoyed, he complains that he barely had a moment to breathe, and here comes another powerful attack. A second explosion illuminates everything, but the result seems different from the last. He then curses, having spent too much energy on the minions earlier. The boy realizes at this rate, he only has a few more minutes before his strength gives out. With that, he decides he must strike the monster's core before it's too late. Suddenly, the protagonist is surprised by something strange coming from the enemy. The monster begins to ascend high, and his partner warns that his attacks won't reach. In the sky, the beast roars, preparing another devastating attack from above. Desperate, the young man wonders what he can do in this dire situation. He then glances to the side and seems to have an idea upon spotting the stationary train cars. The hero realizes he can use the train to gain the necessary height for the attack. With a determined look, he focuses on the train cars and comes up with a new attack plan. The young man realizes he can use the cars to reach the necessary height to attack. With that in mind, he prepares to use the trains as a launching platform. His partner asks what the plan is and says the situation is getting very dangerous. Without giving an explanation, the boy grabs the doll tightly, scaring the creature. He then starts running and says his partner is coming with him to help with his strategy. With great agility, the hero jumps from one container to another to gain more height. Even at the top, his partner warns that he still can't reach the monster, and the boy agrees. The protagonist squeezes the cute creature and explains that's why he needs a little extra help. Then he throws his partner like a cannonball towards the dragon, which is left confused. Next, the young man activates a time and space magic and summons a magic chain. The chain's attached to the doll, which is left hanging in the air. Not understanding what's happening, the hero uses his partner as a stepping stone and leaps to reach the gigantic beast in the sky. Seeing him approach, the dragon roars and prepares for an immediate counterattack. With a determined look, the boy repeats the magic to stop the beast before it turns to poison. The magic chain fully forms and lunges towards the flying creature. With this, the magic traps the dragon, and the boy explains he can only hold it for a few seconds, but he guarantees that this short time is more than enough for him to end the fight. With his sword glowing intensely, he prepares the final blow towards the monster. The attack strikes the beast's core head-on, causing a very strong glow on impact. With a focused look, the hero uses all his strength to destroy the enemy's weak spot. The dragon's core begins to crack under the pressure of the sword and releases a purple energy. Suddenly, the time and space chains break, freeing the giant creature. Even so, our protagonist doesn't give up and continues to push the sword with all his might. In its final moments, the beast roars in pain as its body begins to dissolve. Finally, the core shatters into several pieces, and the monster is defeated once and for all. A large explosion occurs, and his partner falls to the ground after being thrown. The young man's sword also can't withstand the pressure and breaks after the final blow. Tired and panting, the hero finally relaxes after the intense battle just ended. Soon after, a system message confirms that he has defeated the dangerous Chaos Dragon. Relieved, the boy carefully observes the rewards that appear before him. The system informs him that he leveled up 15 times and earned over 800,000 credits. He also receives the Chaos Dragon's Fang and a recommendation to rank up as an adventurer. His partner congratulates him on the victory and says he expected it since they are the same person. But right after, the cute creature gets furious and complains about being used as a trampoline in the fight. The young man ignores his partner's scolding and focuses on the notifications that appeared. At this, the system informs him that his space-time magic leveled up 20 times and he learned new skills. He also gained a new passive skill that increases his potential power by 50%. Despite the anger, the cute creature says it will forgive him as they avoided a catastrophe. Suddenly, his partner hears the sound of sirens and realizes the police are coming, saying they should get out of there. The protagonist agrees and says no one can find out they were at the location. The doll then jumps onto the boy's shoulder, who is surprised they agree on something. Without wasting time, his hero leaps over a fence to quickly escape the area. After fleeing, they finally reach a safe place to rest. In the apartment, the boy sits on the sofa with a bag of food in his hand. He opens the wrapper of a sandwich and seems to remember something important. With that, the young man asks his partner if he needs to eat something too. The doll sighs and asks how it would eat, being just a cloth doll. The boy retorts that common sense dictates a talking creature is strange enough already. Then, the boy has an idea and stops eating his snack before the first bite. The boy gets up from the sofa and leaves the cute creature there, watching suspiciously. He then goes to the table and fills a glass with water, for someone precious. He places the glass before a picture frame, greeting his fallen family. The creature protests, telling its partner not to jest like that. Our hero turns, asking why, and the doll replies they are one and the same. His companion glances at the young girl's photograph, thinking he should not speak of Ria just yet. He resolves to reveal the truth when the boy is stronger as a chronomancer. At that moment, he recalls they found a material to forge a new weapon. A system notification displays the Chaos Dragon's Fang as a reward. His partner recalls that his blade shattered, so the timing is perfect. The creature tells him to skip his classes tomorrow, as they are going to forge a new weapon. The next day, the young man reaches the Adventurers Guild. Feeling overwhelmed by the place, he is awed by the sheer scale of the structure as his partner scrambles onto his shoulder with a smug grin. The creature says he can thank it later. Our hero enters the building and vows to leave the moment his business is done. Inside, a voice summons Adventurer number 23, and the boy realizes it is his call. he approaches the receptionist, explaining he cleared a dungeon and needs to verify the results. As he presents his card, the attendant notes he seems too frail to be an adventurer, but with a professional smile, she agrees and says she will check his information. She then takes his identification card, preparing to access the data. The woman slides the card into a terminal as his information appears on a holographic display. The system begins processing the adventurer's data for her re-evaluation. Next, she asks him to place his hand on the scanner to confirm his identity and verify his rank. He complies, placing his hand on the scanner, waiting for the machine to complete its verification. Suddenly, the receptionist's eyes widen in utter disbelief at what appears on the display. Shocked, she sees his rank has jumped from I to C in a single day, and cannot believe it. Trembling, she wonders if the machine is malfunctioning or has a critical error. The protagonist notices her reaction is drawing unwanted attention. Not wanting trouble, he decides to test his new material restoration skill. With a smile, he calls to her, saying the identity verification is finished. Baffled, the attendant glances at the screen, which now shows rank E, and wonders what happened. The young man feigns ignorance and asks the woman if there is a problem. Masking her confusion, she returns the card and says it was nothing, but finds it all deeply strange. He retrieves his card and thanks the receptionist for her service. He then reveals he used his restoration magic to alter the system's display. His partner praises the cunning move, and the hero says he just avoided altering the future. Before an elevator, he asks his companion for directions. The creature instructs him to use the elevator to reach their destination. Inside the car, the boy waits as the elevator ascends to the proper floor. The doors part, and he exits the cubicle, finding himself in a strange, new corridor. Reaching a door, he finds that only rank A adventurers may enter. But his partner assures him that this is not a problem, and that he should not worry. The doll then morphs into a luminous card, falling into the protagonist's hand. Surprised, he wonders how it became a card, and the object urges him to use it. He hesitates, recalling the reader is a security device, but the card insists. Without delay, he presses the card to the security scanner, which beeps. With the door unsealed, he is eager to begin synthesizing his new weapon and a temporal item. Just then, a voice demands to know who he is, assuming it's a school field trip. The young man faces his interrogator, ready to answer the serious question. Calmly, he denies being on a field trip and states he came to synthesize a new weapon. Stunned by the reply, the man is speechless for a moment, staring at him in disbelief. He then asks if the boy's rank is A or higher to be inside. This man is identified as Tokamoon Shiroyama, the director of the Weapon Synthesis Institute. Tokamoon scratches his head, muttering, "The kid looks like a rank F, but he had bypassed security." At that moment, the hero's partner urges him to reveal the item he acquired. The boy then explains that he had obtained a rare material from a beast, and now wants to strengthen his weapon. Intrigued, the director takes the object from the young man's hand to analyze it more closely. Through a device on his eye, Tokimuni scans the fang, deeming the material good. The scientist then asks if the boy himself had defeated the monster, and he affirms it. Satisfied with this answer, Tokimuni agrees to help, gesturing to the center of the room. After permission is granted, the laboratory floor trembles. Shortly after, a colossal piece of machinery begins to rise from the floor right before them. The hero is stunned by the sheer size of the machine that suddenly materialized there. The director states this is the most advanced synthesis machine in the entire country. He explains that the boy's material is new, and for that reason, he wants to monitor the results. With that, the scientist grants him free use of the equipment and then exits the room. His partner then offers to guide him through the process, since the boy has never done this. The hero thinks it is no surprise he knows nothing about the synthesis procedure. After all, only students of rank B and above learn of this technique at the academy. The creature says the first step is to choose the weapon for the process, which will be his sword. Immediately after, the second step involves selecting the element to imbue the blade with. A chart shows the number of elements depends on the weapon's rank, from F to S. The young man's sword is rank F, so it can only have one element slot. The third step is to reinforce the weapon with materials that can range from gems to beast bones. The creature also notes it's possible to fuse two different swords into one. In his case, the material will be the dragon's fang. And the final stage is the fusion itself. The system will display the power and time of the fusion, and he prepares to initiate the process. The boy then declares the weapon will be his sword and places it inside the synthesis machine. The machine's screen shows the element options, and his partner complains about the poor selection. With no choice, the creature tells him to select the light element, and the boy obeys the command. A compartment opens in the equipment, and the young man asks if he should put the material there. He inserts the dragon's fang into the machine. The hero asks about the fusion time, and his partner tells him to set the duration for 3 years. Shocked, the boy yells that it must be a joke, and that he cannot possibly wait that long. His companion tells him to stop complaining, and the young man accepts the command, albeit reluctantly. The machine then informs that the synthesis has begun, and the weapon will be ready in 3 years. Suddenly, the glowing card flies from the boy's hand, and he desperately yells for it to stop. Ignoring his plea, the object slides into a secret slot in the machine. At this, an intense blue light engulfs the equipment, and the young man wonders what is happening. The glow explodes in a blinding flash, and the system thanks the boy for his patience. A notification then appears, and reveals the synthesis is complete, and the Sword of Chaos has been created. Back in the lab, the hero holds his new sword, as his partner warns that this was an exception. At that moment, the director appears, shocked, and yells, asking how the synthesis finished in a few seconds. Desperate, Tokimune fiddles with a holographic screen, trying to understand what just occurred. The creature urges him to flee while the man is distracted, and the young man sheathes his new weapon. The boy says thanks for everything, and leaves as the scientist yells for him to wait. Exiting the building, the hero overhears two people talking about the recent news. One of them mentions the unknown, and the young man stops for a moment to listen in on their conversation. The man says the unknown defeated the dragon alone, and that he is a monster rookie. His friend says the clans will fight to recruit him, and the protagonist continues on his way. An adventurer dreams of being recruited by Rumika's clan, but his colleague scoffs at the very idea. The hero is confused by the situation and decides it's best to go home and rest, but the small creature appears, saying they should go to a dungeon to test the new sword. With a chilling smile, the doll reveals they're going to the dungeon of the divine beast, Cerberus. Then, an image of the three-headed beast appears as the very ground begins to shake. The protagonist is stunned by the notion, questioning if his partner truly meant Cerberus. The following day at the academy, his friend Rini rushes over, calling out the hero's name. She bypasses another student, crying in relief to see her friend is alive and unharmed. Gasping for air, the young woman explains she heard the beast that breached the school had attacked him. The young woman admits she was frantic, as he hadn't read her messages or attended class. Angrily, she yells that she was deeply concerned, and the protagonist questions her presence. The young woman retorts that she should be the one asking that, and that she came to request a dungeon run. The boy understands, remarking it's no shock, as she's the top mage of the second-year class. On his shoulder, the creature warns him to stop leaking intel and to get moving. The young man agrees, wiping her tears. The girl offers a smile and says she is glad that he is safe. The hero then apologizes for causing his friend such distress. Abruptly, the student spots the creature on his shoulder and asks what that doll is. The young woman's eyes gleam, captivated by the small creature's charm. Without hesitation, the young woman snatches the doll, asking if she can hold it for a moment. The girl sniffs the plushie, noting its scent is strangely comforting. She then embraces the boy's partner tightly, and the young man finds the display somewhat odd. The hero then offers for her to take it home, stunning the student with the proposal. The boy tells her to take it and return it later, making the doll frantic. The student thanks him profusely, clutching the creature tightly in an embrace, while blushing with pure joy. With that, the young woman bids her friend farewell and departs, waving the plushie in her hands. The hero then tells his partner not to be upset, as the girl will return him soon. The creature erupts in fury, yelling that's not the issue while striking the young man on the back. Regardless, the doll clutches the boy's clothes, seemingly trying to convey something urgent. He reveals that because of this, he has reconnected with his childhood friend, lost to him 10 years ago. The partner thanks the protagonist for helping him find his old companion once more. The young man says he's glad to hear it and proceeds on his way, friend on his shoulder. Meanwhile, the white-haired boy observes it all from afar, manipulating his phone. He mutters that this kid must be Herudo, the vermin. With a twisted grin, he hopes this living level-up Manhwa, English protagonist will be entertaining to confront. The scene cuts to the student guidance office, where someone is clearly waiting. At the desk, a figure slams their hand on some documents, demanding if what they've heard is true. A gem on a uniform flares as the person presses their question in a tone of disbelief. The girl in glasses introduces herself as Yuzuki, the vice president, and interrogates him about the incident. The protagonist confirms his account, and the girl glares at him suspiciously from across the desk. At this, Yuzuki retrieves some papers, stating a violent dragon breached the school 2 days ago. She continues, adding that several witnesses saw the beast fly in the direction he was fleeing. The young man fabricates a story that the dragon pursued another student and that he barely escaped with his life. He then bids farewell to attend class, but the vice president orders him to wait. Exiting the room, the hero questions why everyone suspects him. His partner shows him the phone, stating the answer to his question is right there on the screen. On the feed, a news report claims a dragon slayer saved Tokyo from the recent crisis. Countless people comment in awe, calling the mysterious savior the city's champion. The boy then asks if the creature can erase the post using spacetime magic. The doll replies that with his current abilities, that is impossible, and the young man understands. With a sigh, he enters the classroom, his eyes widening at the scene inside. All the students begin whispering the moment they notice him, commenting that he's finally arrived. Taking his seat, the protagonist recalls how his classmates always shunned him, yet he senses that, for some reason, the classroom's atmosphere is different today. Just then, Renee bursts in, declaring an emergency now that he has arrived. The same figure from before emerges, ordering her to halt. The white-haired boy introduces himself as Ryuga Sumeragi, the council president. He then repeats his name, introducing himself as the student council president. With his red eyes gleaming, he's come to challenge our hero to a magic duel. At this, the students start whispering about the president's challenge. A group comments among themselves that this situation is utterly insane. But one insists the rookie can't use spells, having no magical elements. He then recalls that, even so, the boy shattered the magic measurement device. The device also showed traces of unknown materials, and the hero grows worried. He also shows the post about a mysterious dragon slayer who saved Tokyo from a crisis. The white-haired boy then accuses the young man of defeating the monster by himself, and that he finished off the Chaos Dragon, infamous for its extreme ferocity. The protagonist is stunned as the president reveals he finds him a very intriguing person. With a confident smirk, he says the rookie is an interesting figure, and must be finished off before becoming a greater problem. Smiling, the president reveals to the class that he has also defeated a dragon once, so he proposes a duel to decide which of them deserves the title of Dragon Slayer. He explains the magic duel is a system for students to gauge their strength. The academy's hierarchies are defined by these results, with the best earning privileges. Additionally, after graduation, they can become officers in the Adventurers Guild. The only rule is to avoid spells that cause irreversible or fatal damage in duels. Lower-ranked students can challenge higher-ranked ones, who must accept. At this, the hero realizes his low rank lets him refuse, thinking it would be crazy to accept. At that moment, the president warns Rina to choose her friends more wisely. The white-haired boy then says that in her next private tutoring session, he will teach her a lesson she'll never forget, holding nothing back. And the girl is in shock. With a malicious grin, he adds that he will teach her the secret to getting into the council. The girl clenches her fist and says she is looking forward to his guidance. At this, both the protagonist and his friend seem deeply upset by the situation. The hero tightens his grip on the pin on his uniform, getting the president's attention. The protagonist stands and faces the white-haired boy who challenged him. He then tells his rival he wants to discuss the magic duel, and that he accepts the council president's challenge. Hearing this, the hero's friend is shocked and worried by the boy's decision. The young man then says he accepts the duel, but he has one condition for the fight. At this, the president finds it amusing and asks if he truly wishes to impose any conditions. The protagonist points at his rival and declares that the loser must leave the academy. With that, the white-haired boy gives a sinister smile at his opponent's audacity. He accepts the condition, warning it's now too late for regret. Our hero then stares him down with a severe look, filled with confidence in his victory. Afterward, his partner praises the young man's courage for standing up to Ryuga like that. The creature then says the protagonist is starting to become more like him, but the hero knows Ryuga is strong and asks if his friend knows anything else. The doll's face turns serious, as it knows exactly who the council president is. It reveals that in the future, Ryuga becomes the manager of the Shinjuku Adventurers Guild. After developing new fire magics, he becomes one of the 7 great mages. The hero asks if he becomes a sage, and his friend confirms the rival's personality is pure trash. The creature says he will use his power to take advantage of several female students at the academy. The partner also reveals he is very skilled at creating factions of followers at school. The doll then adds that on top of it all, the president also possesses a natural talent for magic. The creature explains, there is a good reason everyone calls him a genius mage. Because of this, the partner warns that the young man cannot beat him in his current state. The little creature tells the boy to check his stats to see his progress. With that, a screen displays Herudo Kujo's attributes, who is at level 15 as a swordsman. Stats. The creature comments that he has grown a lot since the beginning, but even so, the partner starts fiddling with the protagonist's attribute screen. He then compares them with the rival's attributes, and the hero is shocked and can't believe it. The screen shows that Ryuga is at level 78, and his rank A being 10 times stronger. The hero can't believe he can see others' attributes and realizes the power difference. In the distance, the boy sees 2 female students, one of whom is crying while her friend comforts her. The crying girl desperately asks what she should do now in this situation. The student says she can no longer use magic and will fail the mage course. Her friend doesn't understand because she used the staff and spells correctly without making any mistakes. The girl then wonders if she should take private lessons with Mr. Ryuga to solve it. Hearing this, the hero is shocked, and the girl's colleague agrees she should accept. Then the other student says she believes the private lessons will solve the problem soon. Our boy remembers his rival's evil smile, and him saying that everything ends quickly with the female students, and that it all ends if the girl closes her eyes and follows his orders. At this, the hero clenches his fist in anger, and asks to talk to the 2 of them for a minute. The 2 look back confused, not understanding what the boy wants with them now. Walking towards them, the girl's friend recognizes him as the one from the swordsman course. The protagonist then stands in front of the 2 young women with a serious and determined look. He says the young woman doesn't need his lessons, and that he himself will fix her problem. The hero extends his hand to the young woman, who is startled by his sudden action. He concentrates and remembers something he learned in the magic element measurement class. The young man then uses his power to be able to see how the magical elements move. With this, the boy realizes her magic circuit is blocked from overuse. So, all the protagonist needs to do is remove the faulty part. And with that, the girl's magical element flow will start working normally again. He then asks the young woman not to make too much noise while he helps with the problem. The protagonist extends his hand towards the student, who is very confused by this. The hero's hand then begins to glow, with a very intense blue energy. He then pokes the young woman several times, and her friend screams her name, worried. Then the colleague asks what he's doing, but the young man just tells the girl to use magic. Her friend asks if she's okay, and the student confirms that nothing happened. The girl then clasps her hands, and a green energy begins to form between them. At this, a great wave of magic envelops the two, who are shocked by the result. The young woman shouts happily, because now she can use her magic spells again. At this, her friend realizes that she has become even stronger than before with his help. With a big smile, the student seems very happy and relieved with what happened. Then she thanks our hero very much, who says it was nothing for him. The young woman cries with happiness and says that now she won't need Ryuga's lessons. At this, the protagonist remembers the threat the rival made to his friend Rina. Later, the hero walks through the academy and gets his partner's attention on his shoulder. The boy then asks the creature itself what he can do to get stronger. He explains that there are only 3 days left until his duel against the council president, and he wants to close the power gap, and asks for the most efficient dungeon to train in. The creature smiles and says it was expecting this, and got a map in advance. Our hero then asks what rewards he will receive in the place. His partner reveals that the dungeon will give a huge amount of experience points, and that in addition he will also get a new space-time spell. The creature says it will also be his chance to test the new weapon he synthesized, and that he will also acquire a summon, leaving our hero very excited. The hero was the one who suggested going to the dungeon, but now he's a little apprehensive. Faced with an army of monsters, he wonders how he's going to defeat them all alone. His partner teases him and asks if the situation doesn't put him back in the game. The protagonist agrees and says thanks as his hand begins to glow with energy. The creature warns him not to lose, and the young man, confident, replies that he won't. He then charges against the horde of enemies, promising to wipe them all out in the dungeon. With glowing eyes, the boy roars his vow to defeat them as the scene shifts 1 hour later. Elsewhere, a party of adventurers is battling near a massive elevator. One warrior lunges at a monster, but his blade shatters on impact. A mage in their group screams for him to get back and prepares to unleash a spell with her staff. She then launches a powerful torrent of flame at the crystal knight. With a confident smirk, the young woman asks how the beast liked her magical assault. But to their horror, the monster emerges from the smoke unscathed. The status screen reveals it to be a black crystal knight, immune to magic and resistant to physical strikes. The group is terrified. Their attacks are useless, and the situation feels hopeless. Then, the knight readies a devastating attack against the adventurers. The two cringe, bracing for a final blow that never lands. Instead, they hear the harsh clang of metal on metal. The boy in the group stares at the scene, confused by what is happening. He is then shocked to see the attack was intercepted by someone else. Just then, a blade smashes into the knight's head. Suddenly, our hero appears, landing a devastating blow on the crystal monster. The enemy explodes into shards, stunning the adventurers. They slowly realize they are still alive, and thank the young man for saving them from certain death. The protagonist warns that monsters swarm this dungeon, and they must leave now. The boy asks what will become of him, and our hero tells them to go on ahead. He will remain behind to hold off the approaching horde. The young man turns to face the horde of knights and tells the adventurers to run. The group apologizes for the burden and thanks him again for his help. His partner then warns that that was monster number 89. The creature notes he's not even halfway to his goal, and the hero agrees. The boy says he'll end this quickly and level up without restraint. The protagonist grips his sword, poised for battle. He then surges forward, carving through several crystal monsters in his path with deadly agility. His partner notes these enemies grant the most experience in the dungeon. Thus, they are perfect for the young man to level up fast. But the creature warns that at his current level, these foes are incredibly strong. At that moment, the swordsman's eyes flare with an intense blue energy. Suddenly, chains of energy erupt from the ground, ensnaring all the enemies. His partner explains that with the Sword of Chaos, the outcome of the fight can shift, as the blade is charged with the powerful element of light. This allows the hero to easily slice through all the crystal monsters. The creature confirms the boy is now strong enough to face them. He lands before an army of monsters, intending to defeat a great number of them. The young man channels energy to his feet, ready to assault the horde, but then reconsiders, saying he won't take down just a few, but every last one of them. Fueled by renewed determination, a monster charges to attack him. The boy manages to defend himself from the monster's multiple strikes. His eyes glow with blue energy as he prepares his assault. And even while cutting down numerous foes, he seems overwhelmed by their sheer numbers. After the slaughter, he stands amid the debris of crystal monsters. Exhausted and panting, he sees an even larger foe materializing before him. A screen reveals the Black Crystal General has extremely high attributes. His partner warns him that this monster possesses boss-level stats. The swordsman charges, his blade clashing with the giant monsters. The young man knows he must act before the monster's raw power overwhelms him. He decides he must use his sword's element to win. With that, the boy evades the powerful vertical strike from the general. Dark energy concentrates in his hand. As he prepares a counterattack, he repositions himself behind the enemy, exploiting the opening to strike. With glowing eyes, he prepares to deliver the final blow. With his sword, he cuts down the giant monster in a powerful and precise strike. Even after his victory, the hero is panting when his partner shouts a warning. Suddenly, an explosion hurls him backward, and he complains that he's already too busy. The creature then begins to explain that space-time magic is different. Its power isn't dependent on magical elements, but on the very forces that control time. He reveals the protagonist wields the chrono element, the source of his magic. The young man complains about the timing, but his ally insists that combat is the ultimate classroom. At this, more crystal abominations advance in his direction to continue the fight. The boy unleashes his energy chains once more to ensnare all enemies. As he cuts down the monsters, the entity warns him never to drop his guard in its presence. Then, new hooded figures appear in the darkened dungeon. A screen reveals these are black crystal sorcerers with high magical resistance. The sorcerers begin to jointly charge a powerful sphere of violet energy. At that moment, his partner reminds the young man that he is a space-time mage. In this brutal level-up Manhwa reality, he must learn and evade simultaneously. He instructs him to focus his consciousness on the chrono element, without pause. With wide eyes, the hero concentrates, facing the magical attack head-on. The creature roars for the young man to seize control of the flow of time immediately. With that, the boy's eyes ignite with blue energy and a magical pattern. The sorcerer's magic then causes a huge explosion in the dungeon's center, but the protagonist manages to shield himself with a barrier of blue energy. With that, his shield blocks one of the charging crystal monsters. The young man then extends his hand and prepares to unleash his own magic. A blue energy begins to concentrate in his palm for the counterattack. He fires a powerful energy beam that strikes all enemies within the room. After the dust clears, all the monsters in the dungeon have been completely annihilated. The boy looks at his hand, asking if this is what it means to command the flow of time. With a smile, the creature confirms that the boy's thinking is correct. His partner thinks he is more talented than expected, having used the space-time bullet. At this, the hero's attack pierces one of the dungeon's armored walls with immense power. The hero leans on his sword, standing on a mountain of slain monsters. Even after the victory, he is panting and visibly exhausted from the battle. Just then, several notification screens appear before him, announcing he has leveled up. With his energy renewed, he then asks where the next target is. Suddenly, the rank B dungeon boss appears, and it is the divine beast, Cerberus. The three-headed monster then stares him down with a vicious snarl and glowing eyes. The protagonist faces the rank B dungeon boss, the divine beast, Cerberus. His partner explains that this boss has a sense of dignity and integrity uncommon among monsters. Even so, the creature warns him not to let his guard down against the beast under any circumstances. A screen confirms the enemy is the sacred beast Cerberus, the rank B dungeon boss. His partner likens the beast to a samurai, saying it possesses the very soul of a warrior. Our hero seems to feel an intense pressure coming from the monster and is slightly out of breath. Cerberus's eye glows intensely as it watches the young man's every move before it. Seeing his condition, the entity offers him a potion and says it will make him feel a little better. The protagonist agrees and takes the potion, preparing to drink it and recover his strength. The three-headed beast just watches him, and the boy wonders if it is waiting for him to recover. Confronted by the monster's attitude, the protagonist stands motionless before it. Moved by the enemy's honor, the hero says that this is a very strange dungeon boss. At this, his partner points out an old wound on the monster and tells the boy to aim his attack there. With the potion taking effect, he feels the beast's intimidating aura return and says he understands. He realizes the monster was indeed waiting and feels a debt of honor to it. Cerberus's tail glows intensely as it prepares to initiate combat. With ferocity, the three-headed beast charges toward the boy to attack him with its full might. The monster attacks with its claws, but the young man manages to dodge the mortal blow by a hair's breadth. With his eyes glowing, he uses space-time magic to move at high speed. The boy gets closer and aims his sword directly at the old wound, which is the weak spot. He confirms this is the scar his partner mentioned, and focuses all his power on that weak point. The creature charges at the protagonist, even as he raises his blade. The protagonist, seeing a bite coming, protects himself with his blade. One of the creature's heads bites the sword hard to stop our hero's advance. Sparks fly everywhere as the two continue to test their strength in a major stalemate. Seeing an opening, he uses the enemy's head as a support to jump and reposition himself in the fight. With agility, the protagonist flies over Cerberus to try a new angle of attack, but one of the heads turns and fires a powerful breath attack in his direction. Seeing the danger, his partner desperately shouts for him to dodge that energy blast. With no time to react, the energy attack hits the boy head-on, causing an explosion. However, he uses space-time magic, and what the beast hits is just an image from the past. Angrily, the protagonist concentrates his energy and prepares for a powerful counterattack. His hand glows intensely, and he strikes Cerberus's old scar head-on with his magic. With a cry of power, the boy releases all his energy directly into the monster's weak spot. Hit squarely, Cerberus roars in pain, feeling the devastating impact of the magical attack. After the attack, the hero lands, while the beast holds the blade with its mouth. His partner is confused by the young man's action and doesn't understand what happened at that moment. The creature then remembers the technique he used on the female student to heal her magical circuits. At this, the monster's wound begins to glow with a blue energy and heal completely. The protagonist reveals that he healed the beast because he wants to fight his opponent fairly. Completely shocked, the doll shouts that he's gone completely crazy and is going to die. But the boy explains that it's necessary to return the respect he received, even from a monster. In a gesture of honor, the three-headed beast throws the sword back to the young man with precision. His partner is shocked and comments that the enemy returned the boy's weapon as an equal. With the debt paid, Cerberus now faces the protagonist. However, the protagonist refuses the sword and says he won't need it for the fight. With that, the young man clenches his fists, preparing to fight without his weapon. In a fighting stance, he says, "This isn't about leveling up or defeating a boss." With a determined look, he declares that this is just a real fight. The monster seems to understand the challenge and faces him with the same respect. From a distance, his partner understands nothing and wonders what the hell is happening. Without wasting time, the protagonist charges and lands a powerful punch on Cerberus, but he realizes the impact wasn't as strong as he expected on the creature. In response, the three-headed beast hits him with a powerful and accurate attack. Our young man is thrown hard against a crystal wall. However, the protagonist manages to recover and lands on the crystal. Quickly, he counterattacks the beast with a powerful leap toward Cerberus. He lands a powerful punch on the beast's face. The powerful blow hits one of Cerberus's heads, which seems to have felt it. However, he doesn't give up and tries a bite against the protagonist. His bite hits the protagonist's entire arm, who feels the pain. He grits his teeth and sweats from the effort to survive the attack. The beast then shakes him violently. While being bitten, the protagonist screams in pain. Seeing this, his partner becomes extremely worried and shouts his name in total despair. After being thrown against the crystal, the protagonist feels pain. His partner tells him to pull himself together. The beast's three heads begin to charge a powerful combined energy attack. The protagonist's eye glows intensely as he calmly says he already knows what to do. He then declares that he will put all his strength into this last attack to win. One of Cerberus's heads fires a powerful golden energy beam in his direction. The attack causes a huge explosion of light that fills the entire dungeon room. Enveloped in his own energy, the protagonist prepares for the final blow against the monster. With all his energy focused, the young man hopes his body can withstand the power he's about to use. Then he charges with a battle cry, releasing all his energy at once. Without wasting time, the protagonist charges and lands some powerful punches against the beast, but the monster retaliates and throws him far away with a blow that injures his arm. Despite the pain, the young man faces the enemy with a look full of hatred and determination. The three-headed beast then roars and charges with its claws to end the fight. At this, the protagonist concentrates his energy in his fist, preparing for the attack, with his eyes glowing. With primal fury, he unleashes all his strength in a single roar. He lands another crushing blow upon one of the creature's heads. The beast shrieks in agony from the impact. Soaring into the air, he confronts the monster's three heads and prepares his final strike. With grim resolve, he declares that this is the end of the road for the beast. A colossal explosion of azure energy erupts, completely consuming the monster. As the dust settles, we see our protagonist standing over his vanquished foe. The young man reflects, wondering if he's always been this reckless in battle. With a sigh, he accepts that he's just a brute who acts before he thinks. A system window materializes, confirming he has cleared the Rank B dungeon. Abruptly, he awakens to a familiar voice, asking if he's finally conscious. Prying his eyes open, he seems disoriented by what just transpired. His partner then gazes at him with deep concern, awaiting the young man's reply. Seated on the ground, he states that he somehow vanquished the formidable enemy. A screen reveals he gained 20 levels, and he ponders what else he obtained. The system displays a new cloak, which the young man decides to equip later. But, suddenly, our hero senses something amiss, his face twisting in astonishment. To his utter shock, the creature stands before him once more. The resurrected creature stuns the protagonist, but shockingly, the beast now resembles a small, harmless puppy. Completely bewildered, the protagonist is rendered speechless by the monster's transformation. The creature now meets his gaze with a docile expression, even wagging its tail eagerly. Though he can't comprehend it, he extends a hand toward the three-headed beast. With that, he cautiously pets the monster's head, which seems to enjoy the contact. The familiar voice notes that the beast likes him, and the protagonist asks if this is truly the dungeon boss. His partner confirms it was unexpected, but that he secured the reward regardless. The protagonist then asks if the prize was the cloak, but the entity immediately denies it. With that, it reveals that the reward is the sacred beast, Cerberus itself, the ultimate prize of the dungeon. The entity warns that to forge the contract, he must feed the beast his blood. Without a second of hesitation, the protagonist slices his finger, offering his blood to the creature. He then presents it to one of the creature's maws. A screen confirms the beast is now his familiar, and his partner declares their objective complete. 3 days later, at the Adventurers Academy, someone points to a figure in the courtyard. The students stare at our hero and whisper, questioning if it's truly him. With a bandage on his face, the young man walks with a grave and resolute expression. Suddenly, his friend Rena spots him from a distance and calls out his name. She rushes to him, asking where he's been, as she couldn't reach him. Our protagonist explains he underwent special training for his duel against the president. The girl is deeply concerned, wondering what he did to get so battered. Our hero states confidently that one way or another, he is prepared for the battle. Seeing this new demeanor, the girl wonders if he's the same friend she once knew. With his eyes closed, the young man appears serene and far more self-assured than before. From a distance, the council president observes and assumes the rookie had fled in terror. With a sinister smirk, he thinks his rival only returned to display his own pathetic nature. Then, the white-haired boy and his cronies confront them in the school corridor. He then proclaims to everyone that the duel will commence right after today's classes. Mockingly, the president asks if he's ready, sarcastically calling him Dragon Slayer. Without flinching, our hero meets his rival's gaze and confirms he is more than prepared. The president then asks if he's forgotten the foolish condition he proposed. The protagonist confirms that the loser of this duel will be forced to abandon this academy forever. At this, his rival declares that isn't enough, and the young man asks what he means. The white-haired boy then extends his hand, poised for a grand gesture, and proposes adding 100 million credits to the wager to make things interesting. Hearing this, our protagonist is utterly staggered by the staggering sum. The other students begin to pressure the protagonist into accepting the bet. Observing it all, his partner discerns the council president's strategy. The entity realizes the rival is using the other students to bait the young man. With this, it concludes that his opponent is just as cunning as he is, just as it always would be. The rival declares he'll seize everything the protagonist has. With a malicious grin, he adds that he will break him and make him a slave. His friend tries to intervene, but he cuts her off, accepting the 100 million bet. The council president smirks. Satisfied by his opponent's bold response, he bids farewell, saying he awaits their magic duel. Before leaving, he turns to the girl, threatening her over her private lesson. The young woman is left speechless and terrified by the president's menace. Seeing her fear, our hero turns and tells her not to worry. With a confident smirk, he assures his friend he will absolutely win. After days of brutal dungeon training, our young man is prepared for this duel. Later, after class, the protagonist stalks the hallway. The time for the duel is near, but he stops, glancing aside with a knowing look. Just then, a group of bullies appears, the leader inviting him to play before the duel. One thug reveals they'll each get 1,000,000 credits to take him out. The protagonist hears the threat but remains calm, showing no reaction. The aggressors taunt him, asking if he's scared, saying tears won't help. Ignoring the provocations, our hero whispers that this is a massive relief. Utterly confused by his response, the bullies fail to grasp the situation at all. He's relieved his rival uses such predictable tricks, like a villain in a level-up manhwa. He then warns them they'll be the first to collect their share of the reward. Enraged by his audacity, the leader points his sword, calling him a bastard. The bully screams for the young man not to get cocky over his attitude. With a cold glare, his eyes flaring blue, the protagonist prepares to counter. In the blink of an eye, he lunges forward, slamming the bully to the ground in a single blow. Eyes glowing, he faces the rest of the pack without showing any fear. He stands and says it's a pain dealing with them all at once. Meanwhile, in the arena, the rival complains that the Dragon Slayer is a no-show. He asks the judge if he can win by default if his opponent fails to appear. His followers mock the rookie as a fool, and that he probably fled in terror. With a smirk, the president assumes his lackeys have already handled the protagonist. In the stands, the hero's friend is sick with worry over his disappearance. But suddenly, a shout from the crowd. The challenger has finally arrived. At this, the president and his followers turn, shocked, disbelieving what they see. Stunned, the rival demands what the hell the young man is doing there. The hero replies, there's nothing strange, as they had scheduled a duel. Speechless, the council president points at the protagonist, at a loss for what to say. Back at the school, all the bullies lay on the floor, utterly defeated. With a grim look, the protagonist says they can finally begin the fight. He turns to the judge, asking for the signal to start the duel. The judge announces the student from Class 3 to take his position for the duel. Next, he introduces the student from Class 2F, Kuyu Haruto. With both fighters in position, the judge finally gives the start signal. The council president grinds his teeth, enraged by the earlier humiliation. He growls he doesn't know how the rookie did it, but he will finish him. With a clenched fist, he prepares to unleash his full power. At this, his opponent declares he's going all out from the start. A massive wave of fire erupts from him, surging toward our hero. Striding through the flames, the president seems utterly confident in his victory. With a malicious grin, He asks if his opponent is ready for what's coming. Our hero watches a screen reveal he's using an advanced fire spell. Without wasting time, the president charges, launching a powerful flame attack. He thinks he held nothing back. If this blow lands, it's the end for his rival. But the protagonist remains calm, his eyes glowing with blue energy. His opponent concentrates his flames, ensuring the blow will connect. He realizes the flames distort the very flow of time as they advance. With that, the young man evades the fireball as it grazes past him, effortlessly. He glides through a storm of explosions, his expression a mask of chilling calm as another blast narrowly misses. With a flicker of power, he conjures an afterimage, duping his foe. The council president roars in disbelief, screaming that it's impossible. The young man touches down on the charred earth unscathed, a testament to his dominance, but upon landing, he senses something is wrong. He then vaults high into the air, his instincts screaming. A pillar of fire erupts from the ground below. He had sensed the trap just in time. His rival is staggered that his twofold trap failed. The president watches, stunned, as our hero gathers his azure energy, preparing to unleash his chrono ray. A massive beam of power slams into the president, hurling him to the arena floor. The audience is utterly stunned, wondering how a magicless boy did that. A wide grin spreads across his friend's face. She whispers that it was incredible. She knew it. He is no longer the same Herudo. Striding forward, the protagonist asks if he wasn't planning to fight seriously from the very start. Back on his feet, the battered president glares at him. His rival's face twists with a rage that has clearly boiled over. He bellows, unleashing a torrent of flames around him. His partner explains, this spell unleashes direct flame attacks at 3,000 degrees, yet our hero calmly faces the inferno, bending the flames with his bare hand. The president screams that the spell incinerates all it touches, that he will be reduced to ash. At that, the protagonist lunges, kicking his rival's leg to break his stance mid-duel. He seizes Ryuga's arm, slamming him to the ground. With the president pinned, he cocks back a fist, aiming for his face. With a look of sheer shock, his rival flinches, fearing the impact. But in a show of restraint, the blow lands just beside the president's head. Our protagonist then calmly states he has extinguished the flames. Enraged, the president points a trembling finger, calling him trash, declaring he will be failed. He then turns to his cronies, asking if they know what to do. With hands aglow, the president's followers roar his name, pledging their aid. A massive sigil of fire forms above the president as he siphons their magic. He grins, basking in the borrowed power, as a voice declares this a clear violation. Our hero then asks how much power he must steal just to fight him. His rival only cackles maliciously, his hair igniting into flames. Suddenly, his feet warp into draconic claws, his secret technique. A blazing aura envelops the president. The power erupts into a colossal pillar of fire, scorching the arena's ceiling. Witnessing this overwhelming magic, the young man is shocked, unable to process what he's seeing. The flames then coalesce, taking the form of a massive fire dragon before him. It is a summoned beast, and the protagonist knows a normal victory is impossible. Still, he faces the beast, muttering that a conventional fight was never an option. Faced with the gargantuan fire dragon, the creature unleashes a torrent of flame at him. With an incredible leap, he narrowly evades the magical beast's devastating assault. He counters, firing a beam of blue energy from his hand toward the monster. With wide eyes, our hero cannot believe what happens next. The fire monster is completely unharmed. He realizes his attack was utterly useless. The flaming beast now prepares another strike to end this duel for good. The colossal dragon charges, cornering the protagonist. Driven back by the searing heat, he is now completely encircled by enemy fire. Pushed against the wall, his escape is cut off. The young man realizes there is nowhere left to run. He is completely trapped. The giant fire creature closes in from all sides, sealing his fate. But as his eyes glow an intense blue, a new plan begins to form. He then detects an anomaly in the flow of time within the beast. The protagonist realizes it's a fracture, a small fissure in the temporal stream itself. He thinks if he can somehow widen that fissure, he might just have a chance. At that very moment, the fire dragon strikes with its giant claw, smashing the ground. But a blue light flares in the beast's palm, stunning all. Suddenly, the hero materializes, cloaked in azure energy, and intercepts the dragon's assault. He leaps back, revealing he used a temporal afterimage to evade the strike. Clutching his sword, the protagonist asks his partner for permission to use the plushie again. The small creature materializes, grumbling about being used again, but ultimately consents. With that, the protagonist snatches his partner, whose face contorts in pure despair. He then hurls the creature, which erupts in blue energy, its expression furious. The protagonist stomps, unleashing a chain ability to ensnare his partner in midair. Using the doll as an anchor, he begins to swing, building momentum. With a focused gaze, the young man prepares to assault the fire monster with all his might. The hero then charges at blinding speed toward the flaming beast. His eyes glowing intensely, he locks onto the weak point he'd identified in the foe. He realizes this is the fissure in the flow of time he glimpsed earlier. With a roar, the protagonist poises his sword to strike the creature's vulnerability. He then unleashes a devastating blow, cleaving the fire dragon in two with his blade. The protagonist lands safely as the monster dissolves into dark embers. Witnessing this attack succeed, the president is stunned, unable to comprehend what just happened. Desperate, the council president clutches his hair, not understanding how this was possible. He screams that it's impossible. As long as the followers chant, the magic regenerates infinitely. The president advances, demanding why the magic failed to regenerate. He keeps shouting that no known magical principle allows this. Our protagonist lands a powerful strike to his arrogant opponent's chest. The impact sends the white-haired boy to the ground, utterly defeated and powerless. The proctor overseeing the duel is aghast. The protagonist asks for the fight's result. The proctor then declares the winner of the duel, our hero, Kuyu Haruto. We see Rina and her friends at a party, having gathered everyone to celebrate. They throw confetti and congratulate our hero for his victory in the duel. A little embarrassed by the celebration, our hero can only thank them. The girl hands him a glass, asking him to do the honors. The young man then sits at the table with the girls, who watch him expectantly. He eyes the glass and agrees to make the toast, kicking off the celebration. With that, everyone raises their glasses, toasting together in joyous celebration. The students continue the party, drinking and eating snacks from the table. One of the girls says she is relieved the president is leaving school. The others agree, complaining he was a horrible and abusive person. One of them hugs Rina, saying she narrowly escaped the president's clutches. Suddenly, a classmate asks the hero about the 100 million from the bet. The protagonist takes a sip of his drink. He sets the glass down, admitting he completely forgot about the wager. The girls are completely shocked, shouting that it was a colossal waste. The protagonist calmly explains he was never interested in the prize money. Hearing this, the girls get stars in their eyes, finding his attitude cool. Then, a student calls his name, wanting to ask something important. She then asks what his relationship with Rina is, leaving him confused. At the sudden question, his friend spits out her drink. Shocked by the situation, the young woman shouts at her classmate, asking what she's saying out of the blue. Her friend explains that he picked a fight with the school's top student because of her. At this, the other girls chime in, again asking about the relationship between the two. Pressured by the students, the protagonist doesn't know what to say, and begins to stutter. Seeing his reaction, the young women lean in closer, awaiting his answer. With no way out, he suddenly stands, making an excuse about the restroom to escape. Watching him leave, the girls comment that he managed to evade their question. One of the young women remarks he seems changed, more mature now. Rina then recalls that since that day, her friend has always been there for her. She remembers their childhood, when he protected her from a giant, ferocious beast. In the flashback, we see the young boy, defending his friend with a simple stick. Now, Renee clutches her glass, thinking things have always been this way. With a flushed face, the girl remembers the secret they now share. She recalls how he saved her in the dungeon on that dark night. The young woman remembers the instant her friend obliterated the monster with his power. She then remembers the protagonist standing before her after saving her from danger. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, our hero washes his hands, thinking about the party that just happened. He then gets a message from his friend, apologizing for the questions. Reading the message, the protagonist cracks a slight smile at the girl's concern. Looking at his reflection, he thinks he hasn't seen something so alive in a long time. With that, his expression hardens as he grips the sink. He remembers his family, and how he believed he would never have happy moments again. The young man then questions if the future can truly be changed by his actions. Suddenly, the creature on his shoulder calls his name to get his attention. Annoyed, the boy turns and tells his partner to be quiet until they are home. The creature warns that it's an emergency, and the young man is confused by this declaration. His future self then says in a grave tone that the time has finally come. The protagonist turns, asking what the hell his partner is talking about now. Then, the entity says it will tell him the real reason for being there with him. With that, it reveals that the hero's younger sister, who was supposed to be dead, is in fact alive, and an image of his sister flashes in his mind. Completely shocked, the protagonist can't believe what he just heard. He remembers his sister, Ria, passed away in an accident long ago, but the doll explains that she is not alive in the world he is in. The creature then tells him to prepare immediately for what is coming. With a determined look, the entity declares that the two of them will save her together. Soon, flashbacks of the protagonist's childhood with his sister emerge. With a big smile, the young girl showed off the red scarf she had just made. Curious, the protagonist asked if Ria herself had made the gift. Beaming with pride, the little girl jumps with joy and confirms she made it all by herself. The protagonist finds her amusing. With a radiant face, the girl extends the gift, saying it's for him to wear. Completely surprised, the boy asks if it is really for him and if it will look good. With that, the young woman pouts and asks if he doesn't want her gift. Quickly, the protagonist denies it and says, of course, he wants the scarf. Hearing this, the little girl breaks into a huge smile of pure happiness. She then puts the scarf on him and says he should have accepted it right away. With the gift around his neck, the boy comments that the stitching seems a bit loose. With the scarf in place, the girl warns that tomorrow is Christmas Day, She then puts on a fake mustache, saying it's a gift from Santa. With a gentle smile, the hero understands the gesture and thanks her for the heartfelt gift. The girl proposes a belated Christmas party after her ballet recital. With a smile, she says he will also have to give her a gift, but he reveals he never kept the promise, as his family had an accident. Back in the present, the protagonist remembers that they never made it home again. A voice calls his name, pulling him from his sad memories of the past. In his apartment, the young man continues to be lost in his thoughts about what happened. Looking at the shelf, he focuses on a very special memory from his childhood. He stares at the photo of his family and the scarf his little sister gave him as a gift. With that, the hero apologizes and asks his partner to repeat what he said before. The creature then tells him to pull himself together, as they have a mission that cannot fail. The protagonist agrees but asks why his sister, Ria, is alive in the first place. He then concludes that everyone died in the accident, so she can't be alive. The partner asks what he knows about the accident, and the young man says it was a mystery. At this, the entity explains that this mystery is beyond their current science. The protagonist is shocked and confused by the revelation, not understanding a thing. The small creature reveals that a space-time hole opened in the sky that day. Confused, the protagonist asks what that is, and the entity confirms it's a dimensional connection. The being explains that the plane was pulled in by the rift, that's why it vanished from radar before impact. Shaken, the young man argues this doesn't change that all passengers perished. His companion reminds him his sister Ria's body was never recovered from the wreckage. At this, the creature concludes she was the only one dragged into that void alone. Eyes wide with horror, the hero finally grasps the impossible truth. The entity calls this place the dimensional rift, where time and space are warped. Therefore, years here would be less than a blink for his little sister inside. So when the rift reopens, his sister will finally return to this world. He reveals this is why he came from the future. Because when he discovered all this, it was already too late. The doll clutches his clothes, begging the young man to save the girl this time. Apprehensively, the small creature asks this world's protagonist to do what he himself could not. The protagonist remains silent, watching this creature. He then agrees and asks where and when the temporal rift will appear. The creature says it will manifest right above Tokyo Tower in the Sky Castle dungeon. The next day, we see Tokyo preparing for another mundane workday. Gazing over the city, the protagonist is steeled for the mission. The mission, with his sister's scarf wrapped around his neck. The doll gripes that he bought every single offensive item and recovery potion in the store. The young man replies that he only afforded it thanks to the money earned in the Azabu crystal labyrinth. The entity then asks why he is wearing a scarf in mid-June. With a distant gaze, our hero just says he's very sensitive to the cold, and that is why he wears the scarf. His companion understands and decides not to press the issue further to avoid making him uncomfortable. He warns that the Sky Castle dungeon gate is at the Tokyo Tower Observatory. In 24 hours, the temporal rift will open 300 meters above the dungeon. When that happens, the rift will eject his sister from the other dimension. But if the hero fails to reach her in time, the girl will plummet to her end. The protagonist's fist clenches tightly. With his hand outstretched, he activates his temporal mage suit and readies himself to act. With that, a brilliant blue aura engulfs him, and he prepares to enter the dungeon. With his suit and a determined glare, he vows he will save his sister, no matter the cost. Our hero then arrives on location, but is instantly stopped by two armed guards who tell him to halt. They explain that a dungeon gate has manifested, and only A-rank adventurers and above may enter. After getting the information, the protagonist decides to take a different approach. His companion then asks what he is going to do, and the protagonist says, there's no time, they'll take a shortcut. With that, the protagonist channels blue energy into his feet, preparing for a swift action. He then leaps and begins scaling the huge red tower using his enhanced agility. The creature says he's learning, like some level-up Manhwa hero, but the protagonist complains his future self is annoying. He continues to ascend the metal structure at a blistering pace. Reaching the top, the young man peers over the edge to see what's happening inside the location. Inside, a red-haired man and his guards analyze the situation with grim expressions. The young man's companion warns that a troublesome guy has arrived, and the protagonist asks if he knows him. The entity then explains he's the head of the Regional Adventurers Guild and is incredibly stubborn. His future self also says that the man will just stand there looking at the gate without doing anything productive. The protagonist decides they cannot wait and tells his companion they are going into the portal. With that, the protagonist intends to shatter the tower's window to get inside. The loud crash catches the attention of the guild leader, who demands to know what that sound was. So, he orders one of the guards to immediately investigate the source of the noise. The soldier looks at the window, but sees nothing broken, becoming deeply confused. Suddenly, our hero appears as a quick blur right behind the unaware guard. With a single touch, the young man strikes the soldier from behind, rendering him completely unconscious. The guard then crumples to the floor, and our hero reveals that he used the material restoration ability. He explains he fixed the glass he shattered to get in, and now silently plans his next move. The supposedly unconscious guard scrambles to warn his boss of a dire problem. The soldier gasps that an intruder is here, one far too powerful to be faced alone. Irritated, the guild leader declares he will handle this situation personally. With that, he bellows for his men to follow him and confront this mysterious intruder. Yet, one guard remains motionless, standing perfectly still. Slowly, this soldier raises a hand and begins to remove his helmet. It was, in fact, our hero in disguise. His partner praises the brilliant strategy. With that, he sheds the disguise. The protagonist nears the portal, declaring, "It's time to enter." He strides through, but upon reaching the other side, his eyes widen in utter astonishment at the sight. Abruptly, the young man is plummeting headfirst into an inverted world. He then realizes the scenery around him is entirely upside down. His partner explains that descending stairs in the sky, castle dungeon actually means ascending. The small creature reveals the dungeon's theme is occult, filled with undead monsters. The protagonist finds it darkly ironic to fight an army of the dead in a clear blue sky. He remarks that this isn't his style, but the entity says it has already handled that. His companion then reminds him that they imbued his new sword with the potent element of light. The young man then recalls choosing the light attribute during weapon synthesis. The creature states this was the core reason for his training, telling him to prepare. With a determined gaze, the hero pushes into the dungeon, ready to face his enemies. His eyes gleam with confidence as he readies for the coming battle. Before him, a dark, hooded creature materializes for the first confrontation. The hooded foe charges, striking at our hero with its crystal staff, but he parries with his shining sword and prepares a counterattack. His partner then explains, this dungeon vanished in the future and is unexplored. The entity claims to have information, but the protagonist continues battling the monsters. With feet planted firmly, the young man readies himself. Then, the creature reveals the Sky Castle has a total of 100 floors, and a powerful, unavoidable boss guards the dungeon every 20 floors. The hero calculates he will have to face a total of 5 bosses here. Glancing at his phone, he sees 20 hours remain. He cannot waste time. But suddenly, the protagonist's eyes widen. From nowhere, a horde of strange ghouls begins to emerge. In an instant, an army of bizarre creatures manifests before our hero. Up close, we see the monster's red eyes and gaping mouths, screaming as he has no chance to react. The protagonist is completely surrounded. The entire horde then leaps upon him, completely burying him in the process. But then, something happened. An abrupt silence descends upon the dungeon. From within the horde, an explosion of blue energy erupts as the protagonist summons the divine beast, Cerberus. With his summon, he declares there's no time to waste, and they will carve through everyone as quickly as possible. The beasts roar, a tide of dark monsters. With his new summon, he clears a path through the enemies that appear before him. Looking back, the young man remarks he thought they would be stronger. His partner explains that as a sacred beast, its attacks carry the sacred attribute. With that, the hero orders them to keep advancing and smash through the horde. And so, they rapidly ascend through the dungeon floors, annihilating everything in their path. Suddenly, the great beast halts its steps abruptly mid-path. The protagonist questions his partner about the reason for the sudden stop on this floor. Looking up, the protagonist's expression turns grave on his face. They now see a dark portal materializing in a circular arena. The entity reveals this is the first boss, the one that appears every 20 floors. From the darkness, a malevolent energy begins to slowly consume the area. Then, a golden carriage appears amidst all that black smoke. Mysterious figures then slowly disembark from the newly appeared vehicle. Dressed in elegant suits, they descend the stairs. The figure steps onto the ground in elegant boots, revealing itself to our hero in the arena. A screen then reveals them as the fallen noble family, a coven of powerful vampires. He realized 3 rank A undead monsters stood before him. With a grim resolve, he thought he had to crush them to save his sister. His partner shrieked a desperate warning. Be careful. They're coming. Without wasting a second, the vampire trio charged, attacking with everything they had. Calmly, he ordered his companion to fall back, who asked if he would use the guild item. The young man confirmed it, bracing for the coming battle. With that, he activated his new ability, Eye of Time, and his eye flared with a blue glow. Through this special vision, he saw the youngest noble's attack pattern. He could also clearly see the vampire's next move against him. He then predicted time's flow, foreseeing the master's attack. With this decisive advantage, the protagonist readied his counter, suffused with bluish energy. He then unleashed a volley of gold and calcium knives at one noble vampire. The youngest noble sneered, as if he felt nothing, even with blades embedded in him. As the two closed in, the protagonist evaded the attack. He then propelled himself past the younger foe, using his gold and calcium blade against the other monster. Then, the protagonist struck the creature with several daggers, making it flinch. Eyes glowing blue, he faced his enemies with absolute determination. He then charged the family's master, who roared in fury at the assault. His dagger then plunged squarely into the vampire's chest. The vampire attempted a counter, landing a savage blow he blocked with his arms. The force hurled him back violently, and he cried out in pain from the impact. The Though injured, he planted a hand on the ground. He channeled energy to create some distance. His eyes glowed as he thought the enemies were in the perfect position for his plan. Now, clear of the vampires, he raised his hand, giving the command to detonate everything. He clenched his fist, and an immense blue energy erupted everywhere. With that, an explosion engulfed all 3 vampires at once, who shrieked in agony. A massive blast of blue and green energy lit the entire dungeon. His partner explained that each knife was worth 100,000 credits and made of a very rare metal. The creature then griped that he tossed expensive items around without thinking of the consequences. The entity questioned if it was fair to win just by spending millions of credits. With a grim look, the protagonist said the battle was not over and he had to continue. He revealed he'd only destroyed their physical forms. Now they were ghosts. The young man knew, just as he'd suspected, that it's hard to harm ghosts with physical attacks. But this also exposed their weakness, and he enchanted his sword with the light attribute. His sword glowing intensely, he charged with all his might towards the enemies. With a fierce battle cry, the protagonist assaulted the ghosts with his sacred blade without hesitation. He then unleashed Chaos Meteor, and several light beams rained from the sky. The blinding light of the explosion seared the arena, vanquishing the ghosts instantly. A system screen informed him he had defeated the enemies and gained many rewards. After his victory, a staircase of light materialized, leading to the next floor. Without wasting a moment, he began to descend the steps to continue his ordeal. His eye glowing intensely, he swore he would rescue his sister, Rhea. On the 40th floor of the dungeon, the divine beast roared fiercely. But instead of attacking him, the creature charged in another direction, its eyes glowing. It turned out Cerberus was attacking another floor boss, the undead queen Lamia. After the battle, the 3-headed monster calmly approached our protagonist. The beast that was once so threatening now licked the young man's face like a puppy. He then pet the creature, commenting that it seemed more like a pet. With that, they advanced to the 50th floor, but the entity suddenly yelled for them to stop. Obeying, the huge 3-headed beast halted immediately. Mounted on his new companion, the protagonist asked why they had stopped before that wall. His partner replied, there was no mistake, and the protagonist is left baffled by the situation. The creature urges him to activate the Eye of Time and gaze upon the wall to see what lies hidden. The young man's eyes flare with an intense blue energy. Staring at the wall, the protagonist is stunned by what he sees, unable to believe it. With his new vision, he uncovers a secret chamber that vanished in the original timeline. At this, the doll transforms into a card, telling him to place it on the wall to unlock the secret passage. He complies, placing the card into the wall's crevice as instructed to enter. Before proceeding, the protagonist asks his new companion to remain outside. Inside the hidden room, he discovers a massive blue crystal suspended in midair. Wary, the young man asks the entity if this is another trap like before. His partner assures him he won't deceive the hero. A system screen appears, revealing this is an acoustic crystal that unleashes dormant abilities. With a single touch, a bluish energy flows from the crystal directly into the boy's hand. Abruptly, the object shatters into countless pieces, emitting a blinding glow that engulfs the area. The system reports he has acquired new space-time magics and unlocked his latent potential. The entity is shocked he obtained the avatar replay, and the young man asks what that is. His partner merely says it's best for him to test the new power in actual combat. On the 60th floor, they encounter the boss, Zombie Beelzebub, the Lord of Flies. The doll explains that the beast flies, spits a solution that dissolves everything, and also regenerates. Irritated, the protagonist complains that his companion is just listing the enemy's attributes. With his eyes glowing, he readies himself to confront the new dungeon boss. Without hesitation, the monster strikes with its stinger at an incredible speed. The attack seemingly impaled the protagonist's chest. In a flash, the protagonist materializes behind the bewildered creature, which is confused, not comprehending anything. His future version realizes he is already using his new combat skill. The hero's blue clone stands motionless as the monster glares at it, not understanding the situation. With that, the real protagonist hovers in the air, watching the beast attack his illusion. He then reveals he is using his new space-time magic, Avatar Replay. While the monster assaults the clone, the young man activates his fast body ability to retaliate. With his body accelerated to level 3, he prepares for a devastating counterattack. A blue aura surrounds him as he appears behind the creature. The force from his feet is so immense that the ground cracks from the released energy. He then explains that Avatar Replay magic can create a clone of his past self. With this, the clone momentarily takes his place, deceiving the enemy in battle. The hero and his clone prepare to assault the monster. Suddenly, multiple clones materialize and attack Beelzebub from all directions at once. With swords drawn, both the hero and his clones brace for the attack. Numerous clones of the protagonist appear simultaneously for the fight. They all charge together in a synchronized assault against the giant beast. With that, he and his clones use the Chaos Meteor attack to annihilate the enemy. The copies encircle the giant monster, which has nowhere to escape from that trap. But in retaliation, Beelzebub fires a potent poison blast in their direction. The attack strikes the clones directly, and they begin to dissolve from the corrosive venom. The real hero evades, but his copies are all obliterated by the monster. Suddenly, beams of golden light materialize in the air surrounding the creature. The monster is completely paralyzed, unable to move after these strikes from the protagonist, and at last, he vanquishes that creature. His partner congratulates him, calling him a master ninja, but the young man tells him to cut it out. Looking forward, the protagonist states that now only 2 bosses remain to be defeated. With that, he takes a step, and another staircase materializes again, but abruptly, he feels a sharp headache and doesn't understand what is happening. With the intense pain, the protagonist loses his balance as his partner screams, terrified by the scene. He then collapses, unconscious on the floor, while his plush companion shouts his name. While unconscious, the protagonist experiences flashbacks from 3 years ago, showing our hero much younger. At that moment, a little girl appears with a ballet book in her hand, pleading for something. With his arms crossed, the young man seems quite reluctant by his sister's earnest plea. She then vows that she won't quit halfway if he accepts. With an adorable expression, his sister insists once more on the plea. Witnessing his sister's persistence, the protagonist sighs, his resolve weakening. He then asks if she truly desires to do ballet, and if she's truly serious. With a huge smile, the girl joyfully confirms her desire. Her older brother finally relents, telling her to pick the slippers. Overjoyed by the news, the little one starts leaping with joy on the living room sofa. Sitting beside him, the girl begins flipping through the catalog to choose her pair. Witnessing his sister's pure happiness, the protagonist offers a gentle, content smile. After that, we see the two arrive at a dance studio for her first class. Inside, other girls were stretching and chatting animatedly. She then appears in her ballet attire, declaring she is ready to begin. The other girls cheer for Ria's arrival, vowing to do their best. Suddenly, the little one glances toward the door as her name is called. Smiling, the girl waves to her brother watching from the room's entrance. The young man waves back, noticing how well she is fitting in. Her new friends tease her about her brother, making the little girl blush. Shortly after, the dance class starts, and all the students assume their positions for practice. Initially, the girl appears a bit clumsy, attempting to mimic the moves, but despite the difficulty, the little one persists in her efforts to learn the dance. On her toes, she attempts the movements with all the grace she can muster. Then, a smile spreads across her face. The girl finally seems to be having some genuine fun. Watching her, her brother notes how much she's enjoying the class. After it ends, the girl speaks goodbye to her new friends. On the walk home, she exclaims the dance class was great fun. She admits ballet is quite difficult, but that she is determined to give it her all. The protagonist listens intently, happy to hear her say that. The little one then seems to recall something, her expression turning serious. She abruptly stops walking and calls out her brother's name. The girl asks if the slippers and the dance lessons were very expensive. Smiling, the protagonist dismisses it, telling her not to worry. But the girl remains concerned, clutching her bag more tightly. She notes their parents are away for a conference, concluding the money must have come from her brother's own pocket. Our hero is surprised, realizing his little sister saw through him, but she says it's fine and he shouldn't worry about it. He then asks if she had fun in ballet class. The protagonist is just happy she found something she truly loves. With admiring eyes, the girl looks at her brother and calls his name. In her hands, she holds a small gift box for him. With a blushing face, the young woman thanks him for everything he has done for her. Seeing this, the protagonist offers a gentle smile to his dear little sister. Suddenly, his little sister embraces him, telling him she loves him. She then dashes ahead, promising to cook to show her love. The scene snaps to the present, and the hero recalls this memory with a determined gaze. We see him astride the 3-headed beast he summoned in the dungeon. His companion then asks if the young man has finally regained consciousness. The protagonist asks if he fainted, and the creature confirms he overexerted his energy. He considers using a potion, but his companion says it has already been handled. The entity explains it healed his injuries, but not the hero's mental fatigue. Eyes wide, the young man desperately asks about the time limit. His partner reveals only 5 hours remain until the duel. The protagonist forces himself up, ordering them onward despite his exhaustion. He then remembers his sister, vowing they will attend her ballet class one more time. The doll silently observes the young man's grim determination. The entity notes one boss remains, then the final boss of the dungeon, but it thinks at this rate, the protagonist won't last much longer. With a grave look, the small creature says it has no other choice but to use its last resort. He has reached the 80th floor of the Sky Castle dungeon, where we see the mummy of the Acid King, but the monster is instantly crushed by a surge of blue energy, and the creature shatters into countless crystal fragments. We then see the attack came from our hero, wielding his gravity magic as he extends his hand, controlling the power. A system window confirms he defeated the boss, leveled up twice, and his swordsman skill also increased by 4 points. After the brutal battle, our hero is utterly exhausted, panting and barely able to stand from the sheer effort. Just then, his companion, Cerberus, approaches the protagonist. With a faint smile, the young man thanks his loyal companion for its help, petting the beast's head as the doll watches on. Suddenly, a system window appears, asking if he wants to use an elixir. Without a second thought, the protagonist selects the yes option. Instantly, a green healing aura envelops him, his energy and injuries restoring in the blink of an eye. Though recovered, the boy still feels the lingering fatigue, and his partner asks if he wants to rest after that fight. But the young man refuses, saying there's no time to lose. With only 3 hours left for his sister to emerge from the space-time hole, his goal set, he decides to head straight for the top floor. Moments later, a system notification confirms he has reached the 100th floor and cleared the Sky Castle dungeon. Gazing at the cosmic scenery, he says they've finally reached the top, and his partner confirms it's time to face the final boss. The creature explains that after defeating this enemy, he can reach the exact location where the space-time hole will appear. With a determined look, our hero touches his scarf. His eyes glow with blue energy as he declares he is ready for the fight. The young man then walks down a long corridor toward an imposing throne. Seated upon it is a giant skeleton, enveloped in a sinister purple aura. A window reveals this is the Soul Reaper, the god of the underworld and the dungeon boss. Seeing the enemy, the protagonist tenses, his partner visibly annoyed by the situation. The small creature reveals this monster doesn't even exist in the future's database. Suddenly, the dungeon boss speaks, wondering why only one human is there. The protagonist is stunned to discover this creature can speak. The monster praises him for coming so far alone, without any help. At this, the Soul Reaper begins summoning a dark weapon with its purple magic. In response, the hero materializes his own sword with brilliant blue energy. Holding his new weapon, he faces the giant skeleton. Preparing for combat, the god of the underworld promises to cast the deadliest curse in existence upon him. Just then, the protagonist's partner realizes the enemy's weapon is in the database. The screen reveals the weapon is the Divine Scythe of Curses, a staff for illusion magic with negative status effects. But the protagonist dismisses the description, saying it doesn't matter how strong it is. With his eyes glowing intensely, he vows to defeat the monster immediately. Using his enhanced vision, he finds the enemy's weak spot, located in its chest. Then, the hero activates body acceleration to level 3 to begin his attack. With incredible speed, the young man charges toward the Soul Reaper. The god of the underworld is surprised by the boy's speed. The protagonist dodges the giant scythe's blow with great agility and continues to advance. The dark blade descends with devastating force, nearly hitting the protagonist. The weapon's impact shatters the floor into pieces, but the hero manages to escape the attack unscathed. After dodging, he vaults over the monster, seeking an opening to retaliate. The young man then concentrates blue energy in his hand, preparing a counterattack. His target is the glowing core in the giant skeleton's chest, aiming to end the fight. He leaps into the air, preparing a devastating blow toward the enemy's weak spot. His sword lunges for its target, but the monster defends itself well. A large explosion of purple energy erupts, but the blow doesn't have the expected effect. To the protagonist's surprise, the god of the underworld is still standing, seemingly unharmed, and preparing a new attack. Then, the giant skeleton swings its scythe, launching a powerful wave of energy toward the young man. The monster fires a powerful blow against the protagonist. The Soul Reaper realizes it attacked a copy, and the real protagonist, and then, the hero descends upon his foe, poised to deliver the killing stroke from above. He unleashes his power, roaring the name of the incantation for paralyzing chains. Azure chains materialize, ensnaring the colossal beast's form and arresting its motion. With his sword drawn, the young warrior prepares to seize this chance and end the boss for good. But the underworld god scoffs, claiming a mere curse of that caliber won't bind a divine being. Abruptly, the ethereal chains start to crack and splinter under the Reaper's immense power. Seeing this, the protagonist is stunned, never expecting his ability to fail so utterly. The chains shatter as the creature effortlessly breaks free from the spell, its crimson eyes blazing. The beast glares at the protagonist with pure hatred, readying a counterblow. At once, a violet energy ensnares the hero, and his partner screams his name, frantic to see the young man in peril. The devastating blow catches the protagonist off guard. Yet, just before impact, he barely evades. His hand reaches out as he tumbles uncontrollably after the desperate dodge. The hero recovers, parrying the attack of a massive skeleton wielding a giant scythe. The monster taunts him for dodging 2 times, noting his misplaced confidence in his speed. The creature then calls him an inferior being for not possessing wings and needing to crawl. With that, the skeleton declares it will target his legs first to immobilize him. The enemy then unleashes an ability called Dimension of Curses. Shocked, the young man feels the world around him begin to warp completely. Instantly, everything inverts, and he starts to fall upward toward the boss. In the inverted sky, they confront one another. The protagonist again wonders what is happening, as the monster grins maliciously. Glancing down, he sees the dungeon floor fracturing and plummeting. The floor shatters, and he laments climbing 100 floors just to fall. Now the skeleton warns that he won't escape and readies an attack with its scythe. The protagonist panics, seeing the monster's malicious, upside-down smile. With that, He materializes a blue energy dagger and braces for the counterattack. The skeleton's strike clashes with the young man's dagger, creating a massive detonation. He then declares, "Can't make an omelet without breaking eggs," and yells to detonate. The blast hurls him backward as he continues to fall through the dimension's inverted sky. At that moment, the protagonist spots a wall and realizes he is cornered in the trap. Without a second's thought, the protagonist drives his blade into the wall to anchor himself. As the wall crumbles, he finds his footing on the floating debris with a resolute gaze. Observing the scene, the skeletal monster is taken aback by the boy's unforeseen maneuver. The hero faces his enemy and begins to strategize, to comprehend the situation he is now trapped in. He then deduces that this entire fall is merely an illusion crafted by his opponent. The young man believes he has succumbed to the spell and wonders how to possibly break this magic. With a focused stare, he shakes his head, but the skeleton grants him no reprieve and already prepares another assault with its dark energy. The monster then parts its jaws and fires a potent pink energy beam at the hero. The pink energy beam narrowly misses him but sears his leg. The dark energy then latches onto his leg like some kind of curse. At this, the monster warns he will be its newest specimen for its magic. The creature explains that the grudge of the dead will slowly begin to corrode his body. Then the skeleton asks what will claim the protagonist first: the hatred of his own kind, something far more powerful, or will it be its mighty scythe from the underworld that will finally defeat him? The protagonist then realizes he must escape this dimensional space immediately, but he questions how he possibly can do that, trapped and immobilized by the spell. The skeleton offers no time, already preparing a devastating attack with its giant scythe. With a vicious look, the monster bids farewell to the human and unleashes its final blow. The scythe discharges a massive wave of purple energy toward our hero. Feeling the agony, he wonders if this is truly the end for him in this place. In that instant, he recalls the image of his sister calling out his name. With his last shred of strength, he whispers his sister's name. The skeletal monster then grins maliciously, poised to conclude the fight. Suddenly, azure energy chains ensnare the uncomprehending skeleton. Our hero, utterly stunned by this twist, has no idea what just occurred. Glancing back, he desperately searches to find the source of that unforeseen aid. To his astonishment, it was his small partner who cast the spell, ensnaring the monster. His companion explains that it was his final gambit to save the young man's life. At that moment, the partner erupts in an intense, powerful blue radiance. The small creature's form is engulfed by a potent blue electrical energy. A blinding wave of power detonates. The azure light obliterates all sight within the dungeon. Eyes just like the protagonist's emerge from the light. A cloaked figure wielding an energy blade materializes before him. In a changed voice, the enigmatic figure begins to speak with calm authority. He states it would be problematic if the protagonist were to perish here. With that, his future self unleashes a powerful spell, rewinding the very fabric of their reality. Our hero is staggered, feeling time warp unnaturally around him. He then understands that time is flowing in reverse, as the monster's lethal attack withdraws. Abruptly, the world shifts, and the protagonist finds himself plummeting through a bizarre void. With his sword, he strikes an unseen barrier that starts to fracture mid-air. Suspended in the void, the protagonist questions what this place is. Shortly after, the arena floor starts to splinter and utterly disintegrate. Massive fragments of the dungeon drift through the emptiness, as everything seems to reconstruct itself. The hero then lands safely on solid ground, facing the formidable skeletal monster once more. Both the hero and the beast are deeply disoriented by the shift. The foe wonders if that was a divine tier spell just used against it. Suddenly, the mysterious figure touches down beside our protagonist. It was indeed his older self who remarks it's been some time since he's worn this form. The monster, enraged by the spectacle, roars that the introductory theatrics are finally over. The skeletal horror then unleashes a violet energy, summoning its magical thralls. From this miasma, several grotesque angels with wicked grins on their faces emerge. Confronting an army, the future self states the monsters are rank A or above. With that, his older version tells the boy to rise, as he will handle the minions. Our protagonist is stunned by the command to face the boss alone. He protests that the enemy is of divine rank and far too powerful to be defeated, but his older self counters that he now grasps and commands space-time magic. With a smirk, he concludes by stating that, in the end, they are the very same person. Hearing this, the young hero finally seems to comprehend his task. With renewed resolve, he accepts the plan and braces for the monumental battle. At this, the entity says he will relay the attack strategy to defeat their foe. The two then ready themselves for combat, while the monster observes them from afar. The creature points toward them, commanding its army to attack without mercy. With that, all the dark angels soar directly toward the pair. Suddenly, a massive explosion of blue energy slams squarely into the monsters. With that opening, the duo charges with all their might to begin the battle against their foes. With a confident smile, the older version confronts the horde of dark angels before him. He then deploys the gravity territory, trapping all the enemies mid-air. Instantly, the dark angels are paralyzed, unable to move or strike. Floating in the air, the entity taunts the monsters, beckoning them to come and fight him. He then challenges all the minions to swarm him at once. Meanwhile, our hero charges with his blade to assault the main boss. Along the way, he must evade a few minions that broke free. Even so, the young man doesn't falter, continuing his sprint toward the skeletal monster. His future self then casts an acceleration field to aid his advance. With that, the protagonist gains unbelievable speed and thanks his counterpart for the assistance. Closing in, the monster brands him an inferior and repulsive life form. But with a resolute gaze, the hero retorts, telling the enemy to go kick the bucket. The boss then activates its dimension of curses to halt the young man's assault. However, the hero declares he's seen this technique before and will not fall for it again. With that, the protagonist shatters the barrier, and the monster is stunned. His eyes blaze intensely as he charges with a cry of determination. Furious, the enemy calls him an inferior and insolent being for challenging him like this. The young man decides that attacking indirectly is a waste of time and needs to go straight for it. So, he intends to attack the monster directly, and soon, the two crossblades. His sword collides with the creature's energy and causes large beams. At that moment, the hero uses the powerful ability called Chaos Meteor. The blow hits squarely, and the monster screams in pain from the attack's impact. But the enemy retaliates and uses the Blade of Curses to finish off the protagonist. The attack hits the young man squarely, and he screams as he feels the powerful blow on his body. With the impact, he is thrown backward and begins to bleed heavily from his mouth and chest. At this, the monster notices several avatars of the protagonist appearing and doesn't understand anything. With this technique, the hero can share and reduce the damage he received. Even injured, the young man charges with everything he has for one last desperate final attack. With a battle cry and glowing eyes, he swears he will defeat the enemy. The hero hits the monster with a devastating blow, causing a huge explosion. He charged forward again, catching the Soul Reaper off guard. He poured every last bit of his strength into his next move, successfully driving his sword into the creature's heart. The Soul Reaper let out a piercing scream, and for a moment, Haruto believed he had won. But then it twisted its face into a smile that sent a shiver down his spine. He realized with the start that it didn't have a heart, and before he could even process it, the creature sliced him clean in two. His future self cried out his name in alarm. The Soul Reaper chuckled, mocking them for thinking its weak spot was something as simple as its heart. It taunted them, revealing that one of the special abilities of underworld gods is faking a weak point to trick their enemies. The creature sneered at how foolish humans were. Haruto's bisected body collapsed to the ground as the Soul Reaper laughed triumphantly, commanding its swarm of little monsters to press forward. It jeered at his future self, pointing out that he was the only one left. Stuttering in shock, Haruto's future self declared it was impossible, and desperately wondered aloud what the real weak point could be. The Soul Reaper roared that a god has no weak points. It boasted that if it did have one, it would be something as untouchable as the very concept of its existence, the forbidden crown of Hades. With that, it ordered its monsters to swarm Haruto's future self, declaring that it wouldn't listen to any pleas for mercy. But Haruto's future self stayed surprisingly calm, asking his past self if he'd heard that, because now they knew what to do. Suddenly, the real Haruto appeared right behind the Soul Reaper, his sword pointed straight at its head. He confirmed that he'd gotten the message. The Soul Reaper spun around, utterly baffled, and shouting that it couldn't be possible. After all, it had just sliced him in half a moment ago. Herudo explained that the one it cut down was just a copy. When the Soul Reaper had attacked his torso, he'd used Avatar Replay to create a double and send it charging ahead, while the real Haruto had been lying on the floor the entire time. Still not understanding, the Soul Reaper yelled that Haruto should have died from a direct hit from its divine power. Haruto admitted that it was definitely a fatal blow. However, his future self had cast a spacetime skill called Roll Back on him just before the attack landed. Time had literally rewound for Herudo just before the moment of his death. His future self added that the skill was incredibly complex and could only be used once on the same person. Luckily for them, their plan had worked out perfectly. The Soul Reaper lunged for Haruto, but his future self unleashed Stop Chain Level 78 to bind the creature. He then asked Herudo if they should get ready for the grand finale. Haruto turned to the Soul Reaper, confirming that it had mentioned the crown above its head was its weak point. His future self chimed in, promising that they would completely obliterate it. He added they would smash that creepy head of its into tiny pieces. Haruto took a deep breath, and a memory of his little sister, thanking him for everything and telling him she loved him, flashed through his mind. The memories surged through him, boosting his power. With his determination renewed, he unleashed his full strength. In a single mighty swing, he sliced off the Soul Reaper's skull. He vaulted skyward, and with blinding speed, shattered its head into 1,000 tiny fragments. The Soul Reaper's skull, it vanished completely, its body crumpling to the ground. Finally defeated, its fall erased the lesser monsters from existence. Haruto landed back on his feet as a system message announced his victory over the underworld god, the Soul Reaper. He'd gained 120,000 experience points and 35 million credits. Turning to his future self, he reported the target eliminated. In that instant, a staircase materialized, leading to the top floor. His future self declared it was time, and Haruto agreed, approaching him. Haruto then studied his older self, asking with concern if that was truly his future appearance. His future self jokingly threatened to strike him. Haruto quickly clarified, wishing his future self had helped from the start. As they began climbing the stairs, his future self reminded him he was only a last resort. The situation was far more complex. He cut the conversation short, stating they had little time before the space-time hole opened, grabbing Haruto's hand tightly and urging that they must hurry. Criminal acts, all within the last few days, were likely committed by the same person, and they needed to find the culprit immediately. The fifth sage, known as the King of Kings, Tantalum, responded, asking if the Sky Castle dungeon had been properly assessed, since it might be as difficult as an S-rank dungeon. The second sage, Platinum, the Oracle Deliverer, asked if a single person had truly managed to raid a dungeon like that. The sixth sage, Kiryu Miramasa, the Exalted Magic Swordsman, replied that it seemed impossible. The third sage, 150 ounces, remained silent during the discussion. The first sage, Q, the Omni Elemental, remarked that these actions could be seen as a direct challenge to the Adventurer Guild's authority, which he found quite interesting. The fourth sage, Siren, the Psycho Witch, laughed, wondering what kind of darkness the person might be hiding. Finally, the seventh sage, Turium, known as Akosic Vision, announced that an observation target had been acquired. Kurogane then addressed the group, stating he believed all 7 sages understood the situation's gravity. He proposed that as soon as they found the unknown adventurer, they should recruit them into the guild's executive staff and prepare them to be a warrior in the coming Otherworld War. With that, Kurogane declared the 7 sages' meeting adjourned. The next day, on a peaceful street, a mother and her child were walking happily together. The mother got distracted by flowers on the roadside, while the child, mesmerized by a bright blue butterfly, started chasing it without her mother noticing. As the child ran into the street, a truck came speeding toward her, its driver yelling in shock when he saw her in his path. The mother heard the truck's horn and in a moment of horror saw her daughter standing frozen in the middle of the road. She ran toward her child, but it was too late. The truck was about to hit her. The child's balloons floated up as tragedy was about to strike. But then, in a flash, he appeared. Haruto was standing before the mother, holding the child safely in his arms. The mother was in shock, unable to process what had just happened. When she confirmed it was truly her daughter, she rushed over to them, tears streaming down her face. Haruto gently asked the child if she was scared, softly telling her not to worry, because she was safe now. Herudo carefully put the child down, and the little girl thanked him. Her mother immediately hugged her, shouting about how relieved she was that her daughter was safe. Haruto smiled, thinking about how he had managed to save the child just in the nick of time. When he first saw her, he was afraid he wouldn't make it. But with his space-time magic, he did. Though he had to sacrifice the girl's balloon and his own drink, it was a small price to pay for a life. He clenched his fist, feeling satisfaction from using his powers for good. A true level up Manhwa moment. The mother looked at him and said she was coming right over to thank him properly, but Haruto waved it off, telling her it wasn't necessary. She insisted, saying such an act couldn't be ignored. She insisted he at least reveal his name. Yet, Haruto politely refused, preferring that she simply forget it all, as he loathed standing out any more than he already did. Snatching his bag, he said he had to go. The mother cried for him to wait, but he was a blur, already gone at high speed, certain he'd be late if he lingered. Moments later, he reached the Adventurer Cultivation AY's high school. He leaped from building to building, landing silently on his classroom's rooftop. Peering down, he saw the student council gathered below, asking if anyone had spotted Haruto. He sighed in frustration, heading for class, but he couldn't escape the whispers and stares from his classmates. He felt exposed, thinking he didn't need his time skill to know he was being watched like prey. Meanwhile, Ren observed him from afar, feeling him slipping further and further away from her. It felt just like that time she'd encountered him after leaving the Adventurers Guild. She recalled a moment at the Shinjuku Metropolitan Government Office branch of the Adventurers Guild. There, she'd stated she was a student from the Cultivation Agency School in the Nano District, and reported that she had completed a B-rank dungeon exploration. The clerk thanked her for her hard work. As she turned to leave, he suddenly asked if a student named Haruto attended her school. Startled, she confirmed knowing a student by that name. The man explained that Takamine from the Weapon Synthesis Laboratory had devised a new weapon synthesis theory, one based on the so-called Kuju theory. He added that when he asked Takamine about it, Takamine credited a student from Nano for the clue that led to his breakthrough. The man remarked that the entire story sounded unbelievable. Ren stared at Haruto, wondering just how far he intended to go. After class, the professor dismissed them for the morning, reminding them about the exchange student arriving next week. During lunch, Haruto was again on the rooftop, reviewing the messages his future self had left for him. One message played, his future self advising him to first focus on honing his swordsmanship. In the end, The message declared that space-time magic is merely a supportive, auxiliary power. His true talent was his sword, and if he wished to become a great space-time mage like him, he must first live by the blade. The message concluded that a time would come when he'd understand the reason for this warning. But for now, that was all. The message vanished, and Haruto lay back, contemplating how cryptic his future self always was. He just wished his future self would explain things more clearly. Elsewhere, a powerful presence had arrived at the school. The man used his stealing steps and flash stride skills to magically compress the distance as he moved. Haruto jolted, sensing the presence, and when he looked back, he saw a man standing there on the rooftop. Instantly, Haruto drew his sword from storage and rose to face him, demanding to know who he was. The man, none other than Kuryu Muramasa, the sixth sage and exalted magic swordsman, asked Haruto if he was the one, stating that he wished to borrow his strength. Muramasa then met his gaze seriously and said, "The world's destruction is nearly upon us." Haruto realized he hadn't sensed Muramasa's presence at all until he was directly before him. This was no ordinary man. Muramasa was far from average. Haruto then asked Muramasa if he truly meant the world's destruction and what he was talking about. Muramasa replied that it was exactly as it sounded. In the near future, all that Haruto held dear would be reduced to nothing and vanish. This stunned Haruto, whose thoughts flew to Ria. He pointed his sword at Muramasa, declaring he couldn't believe such a claim, especially not knowing who Muramasa was or what kind of man he might be. He added that Muramasa appeared from nowhere, making what sounded like threats, reminding him of a certain someone, his future self, a version he utterly despised. Haruto declared he would forge his own path, making his own choices. Muramasa merely smiled at this, and pulled out a picture, asking if Haruto's resolve held after seeing it. Haruto snapped when he realized the picture was of Ria practicing her dance. In a burst of pure rage, he unleashed a powerful aura which surprised Muramasa. It was not a normal fighting spirit, it was abnormal. However, Muramasa recognized that Haruto possessed the makings of a true swordsman. He assured Haruto he had only taken the photo for a background check and hadn't laid a hand on his sister. Muramasa then drew his sword, swearing on his master's name that he meant no harm, as he swiftly walked past Haruto, adding that if a fight was needed to convince him, he would gladly accept. This only fueled Haruto's rage. He told Muramasa he had crossed a line. Muramasa jumped back, warning Haruto not to regret whatever happened next. As they prepared to fight, Muramasa unleashed his killing intent skill. Haruto was shocked. There was no Chronos factor around Muramasa, meaning he couldn't see the flow of time. Noticing Haruto's silence, Muramasa asked if something was wrong, adding that ready or not, he was coming. Muramasa then vanished in a blur and reappeared right before a shocked Haruto. Muramasa explained his killing intent didn't reveal his intention to kill, but rather the opposite. It meant erasing his own aura or presence. Muramasa then swung his sword at Haruto, who barely managed to leap, twist in midair, and dodge the attack. Haruto realized Muramasa's intent was removing the Chronos factor from his immediate area. Haruto asked Muramasa why he was explaining how his skills worked, joking if he was some villain from a level-up manhwa. Muramasa calmly replied that he was telling him because he could still win even after revealing his secrets. He explained that by killing his presence, he could always seize the initiative from his opponent. Suddenly, Muramasa appeared behind Haruto without him noticing. As Haruto turned to face him, Muramasa swung his sword and managed to slash him. Muramasa smiled, thinking he had won. But then, to his shock, Haruto's figure slowly faded. It was a clone created with his avatar replay skill. The real Haruto appeared behind Muramasa and swung his sword down, but Muramasa bent his body just in time to dodge the attack, wondering what was happening. Frustrated that he hadn't landed the hit, Haruto watched Muramasa jump back to create distance. Muramasa, still confused, realized that he should have definitely cut Haruto, and wondered if it was more than just an afterimage. As Muramasa stood, 2 buttons fell from his coat from the force of Haruto's earlier attack. Seizing the moment, Haruto used his quick body skill to dash toward Muramasa at high speed. As he swung his sword, Muramasa, realizing the power Haruto had, smiled, thinking this was getting interesting. Muramasa blocked Haruto's sword with his own, and the force between their weapons sent sparks flying. Muramasa looked at Haruto, asking what he would do next. Haruto, knowing he couldn't rely on seeing time's flow, decided to try a different technique. He pushed Muramasa's sword slightly and activated his stop chain skill, which immobilized Muramasa and his sword. Muramasa was shocked as he found himself completely restrained. Haruto gathered power into his fist, and Muramasa was even more surprised when Haruto bent down to the side and launched a punch using his Chrono Fist skill. Stunned for a moment, Muramasa let go of his sword and activated his steel body skill just in time. Haruto's punch slammed into Muramasa, causing a loud explosion between them and sending Muramasa flying. Though he remained unharmed, Muramasa marveled at the power of Haruto's attack, realizing it wasn't just a random punch. He then stared at Haruto, recognizing him as an awakened one. Haruto cursed in frustration, realizing that even his last attack hadn't worked. He was confused when Muramasa suddenly suggested they stop. Muramasa then walked calmly toward Haruto, sincerely apologizing for what he had said about his sister. He bowed deeply, begging for forgiveness for his willful trespass and swearing he would never do anything like it again. Haruto was stunned and asked what was going on. Muramasa simply grabbed his sword, declared he was leaving now. Haruto yelled after him, demanding why he'd decide this alone, and insisting their match it's not over. Muramasa declared it wasn't settled, and they should continue this at his school. A bewildered Haruto asked what he meant by his school. Muramasa explained Haruto had unique talent, but was too weak, not yet at the level he desired. He proposed they learn the sword's mysteries at his academy to help Haruto grow stronger. Haruto then recalled his future self's warning, that his true talent was the sword, and to become a great space-time mage, he must first live by the blade. Haruto reminded Muramasa he still couldn't simply trust him. Muramasa conceded, but noted he was undeniably stronger than Haruto right now, asking if that wasn't reason enough. Muramasa then told Haruto he would be waiting at his school, before vanishing completely. Confused, Haruto felt something in his pocket and pulled out an exchange student permit between his school and Azabu Academy. He realized Muramasa must have slipped it into his pocket during their clash. Understanding Azabu was his school, Haruto fumed that Muramasa truly had a way of getting under his skin. Meanwhile, Muramasa stood at the school's entrance, adjusting his coat, thinking to himself that Haruto was the genuine article. Before the 7 sages could use Haruto as a disposable pawn, Muramasa vowed to train him properly. Then, once Haruto joined the 7 sages, he would help him overthrow them and seize all their power. Muramasa silently swore to ruin Kira's plans. On the roof, Haruto inspected the exchange student permit. It stated the objective was to improve the true strength of adventurers from every academy. The duration was July 1st to the 13th, 2054. Application requirements included being a student enrolled in a school affiliated with the Adventurer Cultivation Agency, with student council members receiving grade A treatment and perks at the exchange school. As he read, Yuzuki suddenly burst onto the rooftop, shouting that she'd found him and that today, he would finally be joining their student council. Haruto stood up, saying her timing was perfect, and casually told Yuzuki that he was in. She froze, stunned that he had actually agreed to join the student council. A week later, at the Adventurer Cultivation Agency's Azabu branch, Haruto walked with Yuzuki. She expressed her awe, not just because he joined the student council, but also because he wanted to go with her to Azabu Academy as an exchange student. He replied that it was a given for a student council member. In truth, he was mostly driven by the grade A perks mentioned on the document. Yuzuki explained Azabu Academy was known for producing many S-rank adventurers and was seen as the finest education and training institution in Japan. She added it was an ultra-elite school requiring a magic deviation value over 70 for admission. Before entering, Yuzuki turned back to him excitedly, urging him to do his best so they wouldn't fall behind. He stammered in agreement, feeling overwhelmed as they stepped inside a massive lounge. Yuzuki suggested they greet the board chairman first. As they walked through the lounge, Haruto saw students eyeing them, their cold gazes wondering where these outsiders came from. His journey felt like a dark level-up manhwa. He decided to ignore it, resolving to move at his own pace. Yuzuki, sensing his tension, stammered a reassurance that there was no need to be afraid, because she was right there beside him. He agreed, but couldn't help but wonder if Yuzuki would truly be okay here. On the 20th floor, they reached the board chairman's office. Yuzuki pointed it out, and Haruto knocked. When they entered, Muramasa was sitting in the middle of the room, awaiting their arrival. He introduced himself as the school's board chairman, leaving Haruto shocked that this was truly Muramasa's academy. Muramasa rose and welcomed them to Azabu School, explaining that in this golden age of mages, the school strictly specialized in the cultivation of swordsmanship. Even within the Adventurer Cultivation Agency, they were one of a kind. He added that instead of magic duels, sword duels were held, and throughout the exchange program, he expected them to climb to the top of the school's rankings. Dueling. Haruto was stunned as Muramasa directly targeted him, but before he could react, Yuzuki stammered for Muramasa to wait a minute, insisting such things were not part of the exchange program's activities. However, Haruto asked Muramasa if he would be able to fight him again by participating, leaving Yuzuki confused and stuttering, asking what he meant by again. Muramasa explained that the student who seizes first place in the rankings earns the right to challenge Azabu's strongest swordsman himself. Haruto, thrilled by this, declared it was exactly what he wanted, and that he would climb to the top and defeat Muramasa quickly so he could go home sooner, shocking Yuzuki and making her panic. Haruto told Muramasa his only issue was their last fight, ending halfway, and that once they settled it, he would have no reason to stay. Muramasa replied, he had no problem with that. The school respected any swordsman aiming for the apex, regardless of their attitude or stance. Muramasa then opened a system, providing them with student IDs and class schedules, explaining with these they could access school facilities and equipment, enjoying greater perks as student council members. Haruto saw his swordsman adventurer level was 98, placing him at 4,395th out of 14,000 in Azabu's school ranking, granting access to greater privileges. This brutal system felt like a real-life level up Manhwa making him wonder if he should challenge higher-ranked students one by one to rise quickly. After settling everything, Muramasa wished them success and departed. As they walked the corridor, Yuzuki exclaimed the situation was outrageous, asking how she was meant to aim for the top of the school rankings. Haruto agreed, telling her the newly appointed Ms. President had no need to do that. He then contemplated the quickest way to ascend the rankings, considering places where high-ranking students gather, like special lecture halls, council rooms, duel arenas, the martial arts club building, the lessons building, the cafeteria, and the chairman's office. With a determined smirk, Haruto decided to visit those places. A moment later, in the cafeteria on the second floor of the Adventurer Cultivation Agency, students gathered to eat. Yuzuki asked if he forgot breakfast that morning, to which he simply replied, yes. Suddenly, a virtual robot appeared beside them, welcoming them and asking if they were exchange students from another part of Japan. The robot explained that the school's motto is, "Your breakfast determines your entire day," and encouraged all students to have a hearty breakfast. If they didn't eat at home, they were welcome to enjoy as much as they wanted here. He noticed a holographic maid was scanning their student IDs and playing targeted announcements for them. Yuzuki, surprised by the lavish menu, asked if everything was free. Marveling at how well-funded schools were, she picked up tongs and declared that it was time for a thorough inspection. He encouraged her to go ahead, and she began examining the food, delighted by the full automation and perfectly balanced menu of nutrients and calories. She exclaimed this was her dream cafeteria, one she'd only imagined, and insisted they needed to adopt this system at their own school immediately. As he observed the new student council president's eccentricity, he was reminded of his real reason for coming to the cafeteria. Suddenly, a loud crash caught his attention, followed by a man's voice sneering that someone had something unworthy of them. Looking aside, he saw a group of men harassing a lone student. The student nervously asked them to stop, but the group's leader scoffed, saying it would be a waste on a weakling like him. As he held up a sword, the student begged them to give it back, but the leader yelled for him to shut up, claiming this was his penance for sitting in the Ru faction seats without permission. Just as Haruto suspected, predators were present. Even here, he knew no matter how elite a school is, there will always be people like this, and teachers cannot be everywhere. School cafeterias were notorious hotspots for this display, but he felt fortunate to encounter them right away. It meant he could crush them sooner. The leader taunted the student, saying he was barred from the cafeteria unless his rank was at least double digits, and mockingly asked if he was ignorant of that rule. The student stammered that seating shouldn't matter in the cafeteria, but the leader seized him, roaring that it did, calling him a walking plague with zero magical capacity, a phrase that caught Haruto's attention. The leader then hurled the student to the floor, and the crowd erupted in laughter, which prompted Haruto to decide it was time to intervene. The leader smirked, taunting the student by saying that giving him the sword would be like casting pearls before swine, so he would be keeping it instead. One of the other bullies noted that the sword looked valuable, and if they took it to the guild shop, the Rao faction's coffers would surge. The leader waved his hand dismissively, telling the man to get lost, but the man, stammering yet defiant, yelled back, demanding the return of his blade, explaining that it was a precious heirloom given to him by his father. This enraged the leader, who threw a punch, screaming that he couldn't care less about his personal circumstances. The man braced himself, turning his head to take the blow, only for the leader's fist to be stopped mid-flight. Haruto had stepped in, blocking the strike with a single hand, leaving both the leader and the victim stunned. The leader roared, demanding to know who Haruto was, shocked that his punch was stopped so effortlessly. Haruto calmly replied, he was an exchange student from Nano School, and he was looking for the student with the highest rank in this academy. He then asked the leader directly where he could find that person. The leader, still defiant, shouted that he had no reason to give him that information. In response, Haruto tightened his grip on the leader's fist, forcing him to his knees and making him scream in agony. Haruto insisted, saying the quickest way to find the top student was to ask someone hot-blooded like him. The leader's lackeys panicked, asking Haruto what he just did and what he wanted. But Haruto only glared at them, repeating his question about where he could find the highest-ranking student. The leader, now visibly terrified, faltered. Suddenly, a booming voice interrupted, saying, "That is enough." A sword was launched toward Haruto, and he barely leaped back in time to dodge it. Looking up, Haruto sensed the phantom touch of an invisible blade aimed at him, as if it had nearly sliced him. The true master of the Ru faction, Ru Nobunaga, had arrived with his members. Nobunaga sternly warned Haruto not to torment his fellow students. Ryu Nobunaga, a third-year student who ranked third in the swordsman course at Azabu Academy, was also the head of the Kishin swordplay style school and the leader of the Ru faction. Though the school administration struggled with his unruly conduct, Nobunaga's skill level was nearly equal to that of the top-ranked student, making him a strong candidate for a future teaching post upon completing the program. The bullied man could hardly believe that Nobunaga, known for his formidable reputation, was now confronting an exchange student. Nobunaga then asked how things escalated to this point, to which Haruto calmly responded that the faction members were tormenting a student, pointing at the victim, and that he only stepped in to stop it. Annoyed, Nobunaga turned to his men, demanding if it was true. The bullies denied it, claiming the exchange student was lying and they were only trying to reserve seats for the faction. Frustrated, Nobunaga approached his men and punched one of them, then struck the others, leaving all three on the floor. Nobunaga snapped that he could see the lies in their shifty eyes. He then retrieved the student's sword, bowed, and apologized for the trouble his faction members had caused. As the faction leader, he expressed his sincere regret on their behalf. Haruto assured Nobunaga there was no need to apologize, saying it was not a concern. Nobunaga then returned the sword to the man who accepted it gratefully and thanked Nobunaga. Haruto was surprised that someone so upright and straightforward led this faction. Standing up, Nobunaga remarked that he would have preferred to leave things peacefully and enjoy the day, but letting this incident go unanswered would damage the faction's dignity. He therefore challenged Haruto to a duel, and demanded if he accepted. The terrified student urged Haruto to refuse, warning him that Nobunaga was ranked third in the school. Yet Haruto accepted the challenge without hesitation, telling Nobunaga he'd gladly take him on. Nobunaga thanked him, saying this made everything easier and walked off, adding he'd be waiting at the arena after class. As Nobunaga departed, Haruto watched him for a moment. The tormented student approached Haruto, stammering in fear, asking if he'd truly be all right. The boy, visibly shaken, explained that Nobunaga was the third, ranked swordsman, and asked why Haruto took such a reckless challenge. Haruto shot back, asking the student if he was fine with how things were. He pointed out that unchecked, those thugs would torment him for the rest of high school. The boy, gripping his sword, replied that he was used to enduring it, hoping it would stop. The sword began to emit a magical aura, catching Haruto's eye. Activating his Eye of Time, he recognized the magic within the blade. Haruto then confronted him, saying he was addressing the real person inside, and asking how he felt when his sword was stolen. The boy looked confused, so Haruto explained that even knowing he couldn't win, he still acted, driven by something more. The boy was speechless, and Haruto, frustrated, asked if he was truly content to let things stay this way. After a pause, the boy admitted he didn't want to endure it anymore. He wanted to fight back and keep his sword safe. Haruto smirked, praising his resolve, then asked his name, extending a hand. The boy shook it, introducing himself as Mitsurugi Ibuki. Haruto introduced himself in return, and then urged Ibuki to challenge the bully's leader to a duel. Ibuki looked shocked. Haruto reassured him, vowing to ensure he would win. He told Ibuki they should both aim for victory in their own matches, and Ibuki nodded in agreement. Just then, Haruto's phone buzzed with a flood of messages. It was Yuzuki, asking where he'd gone, and complaining she was still eating, making him sigh in exasperation. Later, in the waiting room of the arena, Yuzuki burst in, shouting what Haruto was thinking, agreeing to a duel on his first day as an exchange student. He tried to calm her, simply replying that a lot happened, which only enraged her more. She demanded if he really thought that explanation was enough. Haruto countered that the board chairman himself had urged them to aim for the top ranking, which made him think the quickest way to rise up, like in some level-up manhwa, was to directly challenge the third-ranked student. Yuzuki, holding her head, said she was surprised it was so easy for him to arrange a duel. Haruto then stated his goal was to reach first place and challenge the board chairman directly, defeat him, and then head home immediately. Ibuki, overhearing, was stunned by his audacity and asked if he was serious. But then, calming, Ibuki admitted if anyone could do it, it might be Haruto, adding that defeating the board chairman would be a historic achievement for Azabu school. Ibuki also mentioned he might earn the legendary skill cube. Intrigued, Haruto asked what a skill cube was. It was the first he'd heard of it. Ibuki explained that Kiryu Kyamitsu, the school's founder, mastered the sword's mysteries and encoded them into a skill cube. This revelation shocked Haruto, who recalled Muramasa telling him to unlock the sword's mysteries here. Haruto asked Ibuki what was inside the cube. Ibuki explained it contained a unique sword skill only Kyamitsu himself ever mastered, the dimensional slash. Stunned, Haruto asked if this technique could truly cut through dimensions. Ibuki nodded, adding that while rumored, no one had ever actually witnessed it in action. Haruto wondered if this skill could help his future self, now feeling even more determined not to lose. Clenching his fist, he declared his new motivation and fighting spirit. But first, he told Ibuki he would be the opening act. Ibuki stuttered but nervously agreed, promising to unleash his full might. Ibuki warned that the brute was enraged by the duel's challenge, questioning if Haruto had a hidden ace to play, to guarantee his triumph. Haruto promised him that if he obeyed his commands, victory was certain. He then demanded to see Ibuki's blade. Later, inside the arena at the Adventurer Cultivation Agency's Azabu branch, students swarmed the stage. They roared as Ibuki, and his opponent, the Tormentor, faced off. The bully leveled his sword at Ibuki, mocking him for the challenge. He taunted Ibuki, vowing to beat him into submission, which clearly shook Ibuki, yet he remained silent. In the crowd, a nervous Yuzuki watched and asked Haruto if Ibuki would truly be okay. Haruto confidently assured her Ibuki would be fine, fully capable of handling this himself. Moments before, Haruto had given Ibuki precise instructions. The instant the duel started, he must unsheath his sword and execute a single, fluid slash without hesitation. Confused, Ibuki had asked if that was truly all he needed to do. Herudo affirmed it, explaining the bully would charge him immediately, seeing him as easy prey. Haruto had then instructed Ibuki to keep his eyes open, face forward, and unleash a precise drawing slash without a second thought. If Ibuki followed these steps, he would win. With resolve, Ibuki had agreed, stating he trusted Haruto's guidance. Back in the present, Haruto watched Ibuki from the sidelines, smiling and cheering him on, telling him he could absolutely do it. Meanwhile, on the stage's opposite side, Muramasa watched the combatants, observing the brutal showdown poised to erupt. The announcer introduced the duelists. Mitsurugi Ibuki, of Class 2 Fahrenheit, ranked 3,424th in the swordsman course, and Ku Kentro from Class 2A, ranked 153rd. With a sneer, Kentro told Ibuki that after he won, they should stay on good terms. Ibuki was silent, then replied, "Understood," adding that if he won, Kentro must leave him alone permanently. He then shouted, calling Kentro a disgrace, which enraged Kentro, who screamed back about Ibuki's audacity. The crowd was stunned by Ibuki's defiance, but Haruto just smiled with pride. Ibuki took a sharp breath, gripping his sword nervously as he took his stance. Kentro opened his inventory as the announcer declared the match start, drawing a second sword and aiming both at Ibuki. Haruto was surprised. Kentro was a dual wielder. Thinking he was either highly skilled or a complete fool, Kentro charged toward Ibuki, precisely as Haruto had predicted. Ibuki remembered Haruto's command to never look away from his enemy, so he locked his gaze firmly on Kentro's advance. Recalling the next step, he unsheathed his sword and executed a devastating drawing slash. Kentro, blindsided by Ibuki's speed, tried to block with both blades, but the attack was so swift and powerful it sliced through both of them. Kentro was hurled back, slamming into the wall and spitting blood before collapsing, unconscious. His two followers were horrified while their leader, Nuaga, merely sighed in disappointment. The announcer declared Mitsurugi Ibuki the victor, and the crowd exploded into cheers. Yuzuki, astonished, told Haruto that Ibuki had actually won. Haruto replied it was expected, revealing Ibuki's weapon was in fact a magic sword. Yuzuki was staggered by this revelation. Earlier, Haruto had secretly used his Eye of Time skill to see the sword's properties, realizing it held a rare special effect. Contrary to belief, Ibuki didn't have zero magic capacity. The sword was constantly siphoning his magic, causing his low assessment. Furthermore, the magic sword had the unique ability to release all the magic it absorbed from Ibuki in one single burst. Since Ibuki had carried the sword for 3 years without killing a single monster, it had amassed a terrifying amount of power. For some reason, Ibuki seemed unaware that his sword was magical. But Haruto knew that regardless, a victory was a victory. A short time later in the lounge, Ibuki excitedly thanked Haruto, insisting his victory was entirely thanks to him. He expressed awe at everything that had transpired since Haruto's arrival, saying he'd been amazed again and again. Haruto deflected the praise, telling Ibuki it was all his own strength. He decided to reveal the sword's magic when they had more time. Turning back, he told Ibuki it was now his turn in the arena. Back at the arena, Muramasa watched intently from the shadows. Nobunaga told Haruto that he vowed to unleash his full power, fighting for the Raidu faction's honor. Haruto met his gaze, asserting he expected nothing less. They drew their blades in unison. Nobunaga rested his on his shoulder. Haruto held his low. They faced off, a grim smile on each of their faces, ready for the clash. When the host signaled the start, Haruto noted Nobunaga's stillness, his calm, unmoving stance, refusing to make the first move. Yuzuki and Ibuki watched, tense, while Nobunaga's followers, a bandaged Kentro among them, eagerly awaited their leader's triumph. Muramasa observed in silence. Haruto questioned Nobunaga's strategy, seeing his stance left countless openings. Unsure of his opponent's gambit, Haruto vowed no mercy. He lunged forward to close the gap, but was stunned as Nobunaga smirked, unleashing a crushing familiar pressure. It was the same intense aura from before. Haruto froze mid-lunge, activating his Eye of Time to scan Nobunaga. To his shock, no Chronos factor enveloped him. He started to suspect that Zabu's elite swordsman used a killing intent technique, not time-based powers, rendering his movement predictions based on time flow useless. Nobunaga then stalked forward, halting just in range before exhaling, activating a Kishan-style secret technique. He unleashed the formless attack, Aesthetics of Nature, carving deep wounds in the stage with invisible blades that tore in all directions. Sensing the lethal threat, Haruto vaulted upward to escape, but Nobunaga materialized above him, sealing his exit. Haruto blocked Nobunaga's surprise strike with his blade, his grip tightening as he poured his strength into the parry, seemingly impressing Nobunaga. Seizing the opening, Haruto drove a chrono fist at Nobunaga's chest. Nobunaga activated Steel Body just in time, taking the impact head-on. To Haruto's utter disbelief, the blow left Nobunaga unscathed. Both combatants sprang back to regroup, Nobunaga noted Haruto's skill in handling the Kishan style's invisible cuts and wondered at the true depth of Haruto's power. Haruto, stunned, realized Nobunaga had tanked his Chrono Fist without a scratch. Nobunaga then revealed, his sword style demanded not just blade mastery, but also conditioning the body to be as hard and sharp as the blade itself. Hearing this, Haruto centered himself, resolving to trust his instincts over his eye of time. In this fight, seeing Haruto's cleared mind, Nobunaga refocused his own intent. Haruto activated his quick body skill as Nobunaga used his stealthy steps, both boosting their speed. Haruto lunged, unleashing a vicious slash, but Nobunaga evaded with equal speed, countering with a precise strike. Haruto parried, then spun mid-air for another assault. Nobunaga dodged by arching back, anchoring himself by driving his sword into the ground. He then launched a kick that sent Haruto reeling, but Haruto halted his momentum and regained his footing. Gripping his sword, Haruto conceded Nobunaga's power. Fueled by resolve, he advanced once more, certain of his victory. Haruto drew his sword back for power and unleashed a strike at Nobunaga, who blocked it effortlessly. Nobunaga pressed his attack, launching a mighty slash, daring Haruto to face it. Haruto leaped back to evade, and without touching down, he swung his sword for another powerful blow. Nobunaga parried this as well. The watching students were mesmerized, their eyes unable to follow the savage duel before them. Many praised Nobunaga's skill, but also wondered about this incredible exchange student. Yuzuki, panicking, questioned the rapid escalation, yelling that they might need to re-evaluate the entire exchange student program. Ibuki rallied for Haruto, while Nobunaga's faction roared for their leader. Haruto knew he could not afford to lose this fight. To save his future self, victory was essential, and this duel was a critical step. Nobunaga seemed to sense his resolve. He saw the heavy burden Herudo carried, respecting his will, but with his own stakes, defeat was not an option. Nobunaga intensified the pressure, his power and will surging, shocking Herudo, who felt the crushing weight of Nobunaga's heightened aura. Driven by his own grim purpose, he lunged. As he closed in, memories flooded back. At 8 years old, he'd told his mother he was off to school, she replied warmly. But upon arriving and entering his classroom, he found his desk defaced with venom demands to vanish, branding him an outcast with vile insults. His classmates jeered, their fake pity dripping with sarcasm as they feigned ignorance. Nobunaga sat silently at his desk as the laughter echoed around him. Later, at their apartment, he overheard his mother begging a man for more time to repay a debt. The man showed some pity. Noting she was just a guarantor for her vanished husband, now saddled with the burden, she apologized, promising to raise the money somehow. His mother's anguish ignited a rage in Nobunaga. He bolted to a nearby park and unleashed his fury on a bag hung from a tree, vowing to become strong enough to shatter his fate and protect his family. As years passed, Nobunaga became a boxer, dominating match after match. With every payout, he reminded himself he had to become even stronger, strong enough to shield those he loved. One day, leaving the ring, Muramasa appeared, identifying him as the former middle schooler, now an undefeated champion in the brutal underground circuit. Muramasa asked if he was Raidu Nobunaga, and Nobunaga shot back with suspicion, demanding to know who he was. Muramasa said he'd watched the match and noted his impressive build, but warned his potential was being wasted. Nobunaga bristled, demanding an explanation, and Muramasa coolly asked if Nobunaga needed money for his family. Enraged by the implication, Nobunaga pressed him, but Muramasa just smiled, handing him an envelope. An invitation to learn the Kishin style of the sword. As Nobunaga opened it, Muramasa explained the Kishin style was perfect for martial arts prodigies, suggesting Nobunaga seek him out after mastering it. Extending a hand, Muramasa formally welcomed him to Azabu School, a sword academy, offering a full scholarship to cover his tuition. Nobunaga slapped his hand away, crumpling the envelope in mistrust, dismissing it as a suspicious scam. But then, as he considered the chance to grow stronger, a surge of resolve hit him. He agreed, declaring he would do anything if it meant he could gain the strength he craved. 2 years later, Nobunaga mastered the Kishin style, a testament to his lifelong quest for power. He now saw why Muramasa, the chairman, wanted him at Azabu School. In a place where everything is decided by the sword, those with troubled pasts and rough edges naturally flocked there. It was clear Muramasa wanted Nobunaga to unite these wayward students under his command. Soon, he was in charge of the school's outcasts. Though Muramasa remained an enigma, he had shown Nobunaga a way to earn, allowing him to clear his family's debt. For that, Nobunaga felt a deep gratitude. To outsiders, the rough crew Nobunaga led looked like a gang of misfits, but to him, they were just other versions of himself, flawed souls, fighting to survive the only way they knew how. With this conviction, Nobunaga roared mid-match that he had no intention of losing, catching Herudo off guard. Nobunaga then unleashed his Kishin-style secret art, scenic beauty, amplifying the pressure from his blade to a whole new level. Herudo was astonished, feeling the power from Nobunaga's blade surge dramatically. He realized if the fight continued this way, he would be crushed by Nobunaga's raw power. Locking eyes with him, he sensed a directness unmatched by any foe he had ever faced before. Knowing his time flow abilities were useless, Haruto chose to trust his own strength and the power of his sword, his faithful companion in every conflict. Herudo activated his Chaos Blade skill, summoning its might to meet Nobunaga's head-on. He unleashed a force that matched Nobunaga's, pouring his very essence into the steel, remembering his future self's words. To be a great space-time mage, he must first live by the sword. Nobunaga was stunned, watching as Haruto laughed with savage joy amid the clash. Their blades crashed with overwhelming force, driving them both back. Nobunaga, understanding Haruto's elation, felt his own blood sing with excitement, and they both lunged forward again, putting all their might into their next strike. When their swords met again, the collision triggered a massive detonation, shrouding the arena in thick smoke. The crowd held its breath. Yuzuki and Ibuki watched with bated breath, as did Nobunaga's followers, all of whom were deeply fearful for their leader. Muramasa, however, remained silent, calmly awaiting the outcome. As the smoke cleared, both warriors were visible in the center of the stage. However, Nobunaga's sword lay in pieces and crimson seeped from his wounds. Disbelief washed over him as he realized Haruto had sliced through his steel body, a feat he thought impossible. As Nobunaga collapsed, he admitted to himself that Haruto's sword power was limitless, perhaps even eclipsing the board chairman's. The host stammered while declaring Kuyu Haruto as the victor, leaving the crowd in stunned silence before it erupted in disbelief. Yuzuki appeared dizzy from the shock, while Haruto stood calmly, gazing at Nobunaga as medics rushed to his side. Muramasa, observing the scene, was silently impressed. For Haruto to defeat Nobunaga, ranked third, almost entirely through swordsmanship, proved to Muramasa that Haruto was indeed the awakened one. He deemed him a prime candidate to take on the terrifying enemies that had plagued Azabu for the past 50 years. Meanwhile, Haruto looked down at his trembling hand, reflecting on the sheer intensity of the duel. He had never anticipated how thrilling the experience would be, and for a moment, he just savored the joy of such a hard-won battle. Later, outside the academy, Haruto was speechless as Nobunaga and his crew bowed to him in unison, apologizing for the trouble they'd caused. Haruto replied that it was all settled now, glancing at Ibuki, who nodded in agreement. Nobunaga then raised his head, expressing his thanks for saving them from further complications. With a grin, he threw an arm around Haruto's shoulder, confessing that, strangely, losing so badly felt refreshing. Haruto noted how fast Nobunaga's mood had shifted, and how full of energy he seemed, but then seeing other students watching them, he stammered, urging Nobunaga to keep it down, saying he didn't want to attract any more attention. Nobunaga pulled back with a chuckle, assuring Haruto that there was no need to be shy. He explained that since the Rao faction had officially lost, they would now stand with him and come to his aid whenever he needed it. Haruto, surprised by this vow, nodded and replied that he understood, adding that he would definitely call on them if he ever found himself in a bind. Nobunaga enthusiastically agreed, promising Haruto he could count on them. The next day, in his apartment, Haruto watched the news. The broadcast reported that according to the Metropolitan Police Department, crime rates were still declining nationwide, though damage from migrating monster species emerging from dungeons was rising each year. In response, both the police and the Japan Self-Defense Force were urging for stronger collaboration with the Adventurers Guild. The reporter also noted that according to guild statistics, Japan's GDP had maintained an annual growth rate of over 10% since dungeons began appearing worldwide 30 years ago. After paying respects to his parents, Haruto grabbed his bag as the news continued, explaining that Japan's unique population of dungeon-crawling experts had given the country an economic edge. The government had taken proactive steps, funneling subsidies to Japanese companies and universities to develop anti-monster equipment and magic stone technology. Rei handed Haruto his lunch. He thanked her for preparing it. As he put on his shoes, she asked if he was attending Azabu school again today. Haruto confirmed, explaining he was still in the middle of a student exchange program. She remarked, that was nice. Mentioning the school's impressive buildings made her wish she could visit just once. Haruto chuckled, calling the interior surprisingly old-fashioned, but admitted that he was being treated like royalty there. Smiling, Rei said it sounded wonderful for him to experience such a normal school life. Haruto felt touched seeing Rei's bright smile and wholeheartedly agreed with her. He then asked if it was true she was starting middle school that day. She confirmed, mentioning she only had memories from elementary school and needed to catch up. Haruto patted her head, assuring her he would be cheering her on and that they should both do their best. He silently promised to never let her feel sadness again. Later, walking down a street near Azabu school, he overheard a woman shouting for someone to stop and let her go. A man was gripping her arm, demanding to know if she realized how much money he had spent on her. Nearby, students began to murmur, recognizing the woman as Malulu, a known influencer with over 3 million followers who was set to debut as a singer. Haruto glanced back, initially deciding it was none of his business, and continued walking. Meanwhile, Malulu broke free, scolding the man for ambushing her and his shamelessness in trying to monopolize her. Enraged, the man warned her that a recently discovered dungeon was nearby, that it could be dangerous, but she continued to run. Malulu only stopped when she heard something unsettling ahead. Looking up, she saw a dungeon gate open before her, and to her horror, monsters began to emerge. The creatures were Imperial centipedes, B-class annihilation monsters with a subjugation rank of 5 and a recommended raid level of 1,200, leaving her paralyzed with fear. Malulu fell, frozen by fear, and crying as the monstrous centipedes advanced. The people nearby were equally horrified, panicking, questioning why monsters had emerged. It felt like a scene from a dark level-up manhwa as chaos erupted. Everyone rushed to flee, leaving Malulu alone and trembling in terror. As one centipede's head opened its massive jaws and lunged toward her, the onlookers screamed, convinced she would not survive. Suddenly, Herudo leaped toward the monster. Just as the centipede was about to bite, the ground shattered beneath its severed head, spraying green blood everywhere. The crowd was shocked as the monster writhed in pain. Herudo calmly carried Malulu away from the creature. When she opened her eyes, she was stunned to see him holding her. He gently set her down, urging her to escape quickly, then turned to leave, leaving her speechless. Herudo stopped near the centipede, hesitating. He did not want to get involved in more trouble, but he knew he couldn't sleep if he allowed these people to be slaughtered. Then, to his surprise, he saw the severed head regenerating, reattaching to the creature's body. He realized the monster had a regeneration ability. At that moment, a group of adventurers arrived. Their leader assessed the situation, asking if everyone was okay, and introduced their team as members of the Minato District branch of the Adventurers Guild. Spotting Herudo, they told him to step back, warning that he would be killed if he stayed. One of the adventurers reported to the leader that the monster was a B-class designated creature with an S-rank subjugation, requiring a raid level of over 1,000. The leader, visibly concerned, noted their group's average level was only 80, and doubted they would stand a chance. Another member suggested signaling the 7 sages for help, but the leader dismissed it, shouting that they would not arrive in time. With no other choice, the adventurers braced themselves to fight, determined to protect the people, despite the odds. Herudo silently watched them. Just then, one of the centipede heads lunged toward 2 adventurers who took defensive positions, despite knowing they were outmatched. Fortunately, a chains of force materialized, halting the monster's head in midair. It was Herudo, unleashing his stop chain skill. The stunned adventurers could only gasp, questioning if they'd just been saved. Heedless of the eyes upon him, Herudo's spacetime magic tightened its hold on the creature, and he activated his quick body skill, launching himself forward at blinding speed. The centipede, sensing death, angled its maw and spat a stream of venom at him. Herudo evaded, leaping clear as the earth itself dissolved where the toxin struck. He instantly identified the corrosive poison attack and vowed to contain the destruction. Abruptly, the beast burst from below, its jaws snapping shut, appearing to sever him completely in two. But Herudo flickered out of existence, stunning the monster. Thanks to his avatar replay skill, he had cheated death. The form it had just struck was merely an echo of himself from 0.3 seconds prior. Seizing the opening, he swung his blade in a devastating arc that tore through the creature's neck with a single, decisive strike. The adventurer leader was astounded as the massive head crashed down, a scene from a dark level-up manhwa. Nearby, Mulu watched in awe. Herudo approached the decapitated head, placing his hand just above it. His power is on another level. I'm curious what you all think about his true potential. Let me know in the comments. If you're as hooked on this dark journey as I am, consider subscribing to see what horrors await. They reached the Sky Castle dungeon's top floor, shrouded in thick fog. His future self immediately looked up and shouted to Herudo that it was there. They watched as the sky cracked, then exploded with energy. Floating amid the chaos was a little girl, their sister, Ria. His future self informed him the whole would remain connected for another 9 minutes and 48 seconds, so they could take their time and not rush. As his future self floated toward the hole, he recalled something and activated the speed-up field skill, creating energy circles as he ascended. Herudo called out, and they both raced upward. Nearing the hole, Herudo yelled for Ria. She opened her eyes, saw him, and reached out as he yelled. He was right there, but his future self urged him to stay calm, explaining that inside the space-time hole, the world's laws of causality don't apply, only space-time magic would work. His future self then flew into the hole, telling Herudo he'd use his magic to push Ria out. Herudo needed to be ready to catch her. Positioning himself behind Ria, his future self focused all his space-time power into his hands, pushing with all his might. Ria drifted closer to the hole's edge, and Herudo waited, his vision blurring as he strained to see. She called out to him, her big brother. Then, to his horror, the hole began to close. Shocked, Herudo yelled to his future self, demanding to know what was happening. His future self, equally stunned, shouted back it was far too soon for the hole to close. Panic set in as he watched it rapidly shrink. With Ria dangerously close to being trapped, in a desperate move, his future self used every last ounce of his power to hold the hole open, screaming for Herudo to pull Ria out now. Herudo yelled back a determined yes and used his own space-time magic to pull her toward him. As Ria neared, his future self struggled to keep the hole from collapsing. His future self warned him that if Ria's body was caught, she would be torn to pieces, and even free, the fall would kill her if he failed to catch her. Haruto focused intensely, replying that he understood. As Ria finally cleared the hole and began to fall, she reached for him, and he reached back. He caught her hand, pulling her into a tight embrace, then yelled for his future self to hurry back, but there was no answer. Confused, Haruto asked what was wrong, urging him to hurry. His future self, however, just smiled, telling him this was where they had to say goodbye. Utterly bewildered, Haruto asked what he meant. His future self explained he had hit his limit and could no longer hold his form. He added that he'd exhausted all his stored Chronos factor with that last stunt, lacking the power to return to where he came from. Haruto tried to speak, but his future self interrupted, saying his name seriously. He told Haruto that he hadn't been a very good student, always complaining, making foolish mistakes, and just when he seemed to grow, his emotions would get the best of him and lead to any more blunders. Yet, he had no regrets fighting alongside him. Haruto was just so human, so kind. His future self then revealed the space-time rift would never open again, marking their final farewell. Shattered, Haruto screamed for him to wait, refusing to believe this was happening. But his future self entrusted everything to Haruto, urging him to save their world and his own future. Gritting his teeth through the pain, Haruto tearfully accepted, vowing to bear the responsibility. His future self chuckled softly, reminding him it was a promise. Turning to Ria, he assured her she was safe now, addressing her as a young lady. Ria, however, asked if he might also be her brother. The question caught his future self off guard, as he recalled how warm, lovely, and sweet Ria had been. He smiled gently at her and welcomed her home. Then, as the space-time rift sealed shut, Haruto's future self vanished along with it. Once the distortion was gone, Haruto clutched his chest in agony and unleashed a raw cry, mourning someone so impossibly important to him. In that moment, Haruto had won a great victory, but suffered an equally profound loss. The day after clearing the Tokyo Tower Sky Castle, Haruto entered his class at the Adventurer Cultivation Agency's division. He was stunned as all the girls in the room swarmed him, excitedly claiming they'd been waiting. Confused, he saw even seniors from the third year were present. One girl stepped forward and, on behalf of the Ryuga Victims Association, expressed their deepest thanks, as the others echoed their gratitude. The girls erupted at once, talking of their relief that the degenerate Ryuga had been utterly broken, and how they could finally sleep without tears. One girl pointed at him, declaring him their savior, and questioning who could have ever called him the god of plagues. Awkwardly, Haruto stammered for them to stop, thinking all he ever wanted was a quiet, peaceful life. Suddenly, another person approached, and he was surprised to see it was Yuzuki. She bowed, stating that as a representative of the student council, she wished to apologize for the former president's actions. He told her not to worry about it, since it had nothing to do with her, but she insisted she couldn't let it slide, especially as the next student council president. Looking him in the eye, Yuzuki asked if he'd be interested in helping the school from within, leaving him confused. She explained she was recruiting for the student council, wanting him to lead the students as head of the Mage security guard. The entire class buzzed with excitement, but Haruto refused, saying he was fine where he was and would pass, which stunned Yuzuki. She then grabbed his hand, pleading she would do anything if he'd just agree. Ren couldn't believe Yuzuki was so bold with Haruto and felt dizzy with shock, stammering his name. Ami tried to comfort Ren, telling her it was all right. Another girl reminded Yuzuki that class was about to start and gently pulled her from Haruto. Before leaving, Yuzuki yelled they would talk at lunch, ordering him to stay in the classroom, citing her new authority as student council president. Haruto just sighed and scratched his head, completely exasperated. During lunch break, Haruto was on the rooftop, checking the system. He saw his level was 98, his rank was C, and the system recommended he upgrade to a higher adventurer rank. His skills included swordsmanship at level 64 and spacetime magic at level 82. He also saw he had 5 new spells. With stats this high, his life was becoming a real-life dark level-up manhwa. He felt invincible. It made sense after all he'd slain. He was stunned to see his credits had reached 43 million, a fortune no high school student should possess. As he was taking a bite of his burger, he heard footsteps rushing up to the roof. Yuzuki burst onto the scene, loudly demanding where he was. The girls started searching but couldn't find him anywhere. Frustrated, Yuzuki angrily reminded the others she had specifically told Haruto to wait in his classroom. Choosing the gym as their next target, they departed the rooftop, oblivious to him silently observing them from above. After landing softly, Haruto realized he had to devise a strategy for these encounters, or his existence would become infinitely more difficult. He then pivoted on the bench to seek his future self's counsel, but the empty space served as a harsh reminder he was gone. The agonizing memory of his absence consumed him once more. Post-school, Herudo returned to his apartment, a bag of food in hand. He ascended the stairs, entering the code to his apartment. As the door swung open, he was shocked by Ria's cry that he was late, that she had been waiting forever. She then welcomed him home. A smile touched his lips as he replied, "Your big brother is home." Ria proudly presented the dinner she'd prepared, announcing it as a meal from his cute little sister, leaving him astonished. Her eyes then fell upon the bag in his hand as she asked if he'd stopped by the convenience store. He glanced at the bag, realizing it was a purchase born purely of habit. Ria gently admonished him, saying he must avoid buying non-essentials on his own. He nodded, conceding her point. She reminded him they were living together now, and that they had to conserve their funds. Taken aback by this, he agreed, vowing to do exactly that. Ria drew closer, a soft smile on her face, and again welcomed him home. He froze for a moment, as the memory of his future self welcoming Ria home surged through his mind. He smiled, telling her, "It's good to be home." He placed the bag on the table as Ria was struck by a sudden memory. Before their meal, they approached their family photograph. Ria thanked their parents for raising them and asked them to continue watching over them, a sentiment that brought a warm smile as he looked at his sister. Then Ria's eyes landed on the scarf she'd made for him. She couldn't believe he had kept it all this time, to which he replied, "Of course I did." She noted it was June, the height of summer, but he playfully insisted that he gets cold easily, a fact she well knew. After he changed, they both sat at the table. Ria proudly presented the meal as her own homemade creation. He smiled, thanked her for the meal, and took a bite. She eagerly asked for his verdict, if he liked it. He assured her it was absolutely delicious. Ria still struggled to believe she was truly back, asking if this was really home. He confirmed it for her, saying she was finally home. He also added that he had already filed the necessary paperwork with the government office, officially declaring his little sister was, in fact, alive. She thanked him and noted she had lost 2 years and desperately needed to catch up on her studies. Haruto added that this included her dance academy as well. Worried, she asked if they could possibly afford it. He told her never to worry about money again. Not now, not ever, not even in the distant future. He teased, saying she could attend the dance academy even as a grandmother. Ria laughed, asking what he could possibly mean. She then glanced at the teddy bear and asked if it was true they owed everything to his future self. Haruto confirmed it, stating they had much to be thankful for. He then recalled his future self's final mandate: save the world. This made him stare at the bear, wondering how he could possibly begin. At that moment, Ria remembered something in her pocket. She recalled it being inside her clothes from when he rescued her. She produced a small luminous cube, asking if he knew what it was. Haruto was stunned to see it was a message cube. The moment he activated it, the cube erupted in a bright light, and his teddy bear, now imbued with his future self's essence, materialized, shocking him completely. His future self began to speak through the bear, stating that if Haruto was seeing this, it meant he was no longer of this world. He surmised that Haruto was likely lost, wondering how to save the world in his absence. Haruto listened in disbelief, as his future self explained that as the peerless warrior, he had, of course, made preparations for this very contingency. Then, with a hint of smugness, his future self asked if Haruto didn't agree that he was utterly awesome, telling him to feel free to praise him. Haruto couldn't help but think his future self was insufferably cocky, even in a recording. His future self's tone turned grave, informing Herudo he would transfer a letter from version 2 to his storage, urging him to use it, to save the world. He was branded a savior, and asked if he understood. The cube powered down, transferring the letter for becoming a Spacetime Mage version 2 into his storage. A system message from his future self appeared, a warning not to slack off just because he wasn't around to watch him anymore. Seeing his future self in the system lifted his spirits, and he smiled. Ria, seeing his smile, asked if people were really calling him a savior these days, commenting on how cool that sounded. He just shrugged it off, saying it was nothing, just the result of a bunch of different things happening. Meanwhile, at the Adventurer Guild's headquarters, a meeting was underway on the top floor, where the 7 sages, all S-rank adventurers, were gathered. The Monado branch chief, Kurigane, known as Iron, addressed the group, suggesting they move to the next item. On the agenda, the Chaos Dragon's extermination at Nakano's train yard, the unauthorized entry into the Shinjuku branch's synthesis facility, which was restricted to adventurers of a certain rank or higher, and the unauthorized raid of Tokyo Tower's Sky Castle dungeon. He stressed that these 3